Tim Burton, who was initially hesitant to return to Gotham City to direct the sequel, was told by Warner Brothers that this time he could make a, quote, Tim Burton movie, and pull out all the stops. With that, plus his growing interest in Batman villains the Penguin and Catwoman, he decided to take the helm once again. The cast for Batman 2, as it was called at first, came together rather quickly. Michael Keaton was back as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Danny DeVito seemed to be everyone's first pick for the role of the Penguin, and the coveted role of Selina Kyle and Catwoman was given to Annette Bening. However, in late pre-production, Bening became pregnant and was forced to give up the role. In her place, Michelle Pfeiffer was cast as the infamous feline villain. Christopher Walken was also brought on as a new character, the diabolical Max Schreck. Principal photography began in the summer of 1991 in Burbank, California, far more familiar and smaller in scale than the previous movie's shooting location at the Pinewood Studios backlot in the UK. Set for a summer release in 1992, the movie was heavily marketed with several tie-ins to other large franchises, including McDonald's, which promoted the film with toys, much to the chagrin of angry parents who were upset at how dark, sexual in nature, and violent the film turned out to be. This caused McDonald's to pull out of their marketing agreement with the studio. Like those angry parents, many critics and moviegoers alike agreed that this film was too dark and may have pushed the series into an unexpected direction, citing the decisions to make Batman a gleeful murderer and the Penguin a sewer-dwelling, black liquid-drooling, hideous half-man, half-penguin hybrid as some of the reasons why. Despite that, the movie went on to gross $266.8 million and was the sixth highest-grossing film worldwide in 1992. Many people embrace the dark weirdness and still consider this to be the best Batman movie out there. But what did we think of it? There's only one way to find out. Strap on your penguin rocket, gargle with that weird black sewer liquid, and sew together your own skin-tight Catwoman suit with me, Matt McGregor, along with my co-hosts Harris McCabe and Colin Shaw, as we peel back the many layers of the second movie in the Batman motion picture anthology series, 1992's Tim Burton classic, Batman Returns. This is a show about franchises, superhero movie franchises. You're listening to License to Watch.
Why in the world was this movie made?
Yeah, Social Network 2. We open on the alien spacecraft. The lizard men are discussing which human beings need to be replaced by lizard men so that they can dominate the planet. Lizard man, finds Zuck. Maybe we see like a little montage from the first movie, and then we see the replacement process. And that would be, maybe there's a special lizard man, and he's been training for a long time to like make Zuck's face. And like he knows all the Zuck stuff.
And this could explain...
Where are you guys at on this?
I mean, I feel like this could explain, if we can't get Eisenberg to do the sequel, this could explain why he looks a little different. Is that,
Yeah, like the lizard man's facsimile is close, but no lizard man has ever been perfect.
Right, exactly.
I feel this would be a great airport novel. You would see like the lizard man's wife. They'd be on like a big galleon, shirtless lizard
Long flowing blonde hair.
Yes, Fabio lizard hair.
Wait, is the lizard man's wife the name of the novel?
Yeah,
it's a reboot of the astronaut wife.
Yeah, or the time traveler's girlfriend or whatever.
Charlize Theron will play the role of the wife,
French lieutenant's wife
in the inevitable movie.
The house where the mail keeps coming from the future, but also the past.
And then we get like close-ups of Zuckerberg and all those congressional hearings where he's pulling his skin mask on a little tight. Every time the camera cuts away from him, he yanks his skin mask on a little tighter.
It's not that I don't love you, Mark. It's that you lied about being a lizard man.
This is the second time lizard men have come up for me today. I got pretty thrashed this morning. I made a lizard man quip, and I was called out for anti-Semitism, so I'm a little shook on the whole lizard man thing, TBH.
Wait, it's got to be something different if it's lizard men, though. That's not anti-Semitism. That's about Jewish people.
I mean, I thought it was a pretty deep read, but I don't want to offend anyone, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to be neutral on that.
Yeah. I guess the lizard men could be Jewish. I don't know.
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
That's
You don't know.
Zuckerberg, definitely.
how out of it I am. I'm not even sure what their lizard men's faith is.
Yeah. Side note: I am a Jew, so I bless this podcast.
So if anybody should know about the lizard man, it's you.
Hey,
Apparently they're at synagogue with you every week, I guess.
So what he's saying is we're allowed to talk about lizard men.
I didn't say I was practicing. Listen, I did my time. Post bar
Wait,
mitzvah.
are you saying you're not a practicing Jew or not a practicing lizard man?
We're gonna have to talk to HR after this.
Isn't it like a special honor if you're able to convert a lizard man from like lizard religion over to Judaism?
Oh yeah, Sammy Davis Jr. was our biggest get in the past century. But I don't want to get too off topic. We're here to talk about Tenet, a film that we are watching backwards. So we've seen it, but we're starting from the wrong end, so we're not ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I mean this is Jacob Strick returns.
Yet again.
The trilogy.
Yeah.
The trilogy is complete.
Yeah.
We've come full circle.
I'm hoping
Full
for
Jew.
quadrilogy, or just the Jurassic World 5 movie set, which is like, why? Never mind. I don't even want to get into.
Well,
the
soon to be
tautology of
6.
that.
It'll be a Prometheus thing where it's like, why do they even make these 2 prequels just to get Jacob back again 2 more times? They don't even have anything to do with the original trilogy.
Why did they bother putting Jacob in old man makeup if they weren't going to de-age him?
It'll make sense in the sequel.
Will it though?
We should do a prequel
Yeah.
podcast where we have to both pretend we are younger and pretend it's a certain year and certain time.
Oh my god! Yeah, have you seen Iron Man 2? I can't believe they made a sequel to Iron Man 1.
I really don't think this has a future. I think this is the one that's going to kill the entire Marvel Universe experience.
We all went to Ultron, didn't we?
Did we together?
City Walk?
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We did?
Iron Man 3? No, that was Century City. Separate occasion.
I think I saw Ultron at the Cinerama Dome.
Dang.
I don't know.
I feel like wherever I was, I remember being very disappointed. I don't remember who was with me. I just remember being saddened.
I'm
Yes.
never disappointed by James Spader.
Yeah, spoiler, he shows up in the next episode of WandaVision. Everyone's like, hey, Ultron! And he's like, hey!
They
Hey.
do
got
high
an
fives.
afro.
Yeah.
They do like a Happy Days riff, and he's the Fonz character. That would work for that show.
Side note again. Zoe claims that I accidentally predicted what just happened on the show, which I'm not even going to say out loud because it's a spoiler. And I had no memory of I was like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if so-and-so happened? And now I can't take credit for it. I was like Nostradamus, man.
And you didn't.
Well.
Yeah, and wait, you can't take credit because you don't remember?
Because I never...
She
I-
remembers.
Yeah, she remembers, but I never put it in writing.
Oh, well.
Like some whoop, she remembers I said something.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's why you got to tweet all these predictions.
Anyway, watch Disney Plus. Or don't. I mean, I don't really care.
I've always been wanting them because we've already seen, Quicksilver, a character. When are we getting Quick Gold?
No, that's
and-
Booster Gold. DC actually.
Oh yeah, I know. I do know that one.
That guy's a
Also,
G.
Gold Dust.
Cactus Jack.
Are we talking about wrestlers now?
I was going to say, is
definitely-
Gold Dust a wrestler?
Okay,
Oh,
so
man.
maybe we should talk about the topic of the podcast at some point.
Bring us
Yes,
home.
This is a show called License to Watch, where we discuss movie franchises. We are knee deep in the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin. This is Batman Returns. Joining us for this episode, as you've heard already, is our lovely Jewish friend, Lizard Man, Jacob Strick.
Shalom.
Welcome back. Glad to have you.
Glad to be
this
back.
This movie once again has a special connection to Jacob, and he's here to provide unique insight. Jacob, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
He was
so-
Danny DeVito's stunt double.
Stunt double.
I actually I wrote the outline to the film for Tim, but he never called me back. Oh my God, is that a cat behind you?
Yes.
That's so
perfect.
on brand.
Or should I
Picture
say
a cat.
perfect?
Yeah. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Batman Returns is the film that put me through grade school. My dad, my pops, was brought onto the film as he was rolling off of Cape Fear. He was brought in to polish Dan Waters' script. So this was basically pre-production through production. He was on set throughout the entire shoot, polishing mainly dialogue, but also largely to spruce up the ending of the film, which I don't know if anyone's researched it, but there wasn't really a master plan for the Penguin, other than I think he wanted to freeze the city, which is a kind of a prequel to what happens in the fourth of the Batman franchise films. But they weren't satisfied. My dad came up with a solution, which was kidnap the firstborn, which pissed off the toy makers and the McDonald's of the world.
Yep.
But yeah, this was the first time, though not the last time, my father Wesley would work with Tim, and it was actually a pretty pleasant experience. But in the end, Dan Waters fought for credit, and my dad was cut out of the film, although there is a teaser trailer where his name still does appear on it before the film came out. So rip, but cha-ching.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, for those people who don't know, according to the Guild arbitration, to get credit for doing a rewrite on a script, you have to do way more than half the work. So even if it's a 50-50 rewrite, you usually don't get any credit if it goes to arbitration. And I don't know if this did, but generally you have to make a sizable 75% contribution to get a shared credit after the fact. Although this is based on, this is still an original script, because sometimes if it's based on pre-existing work and an original writer was getting credit for the source material, then it becomes a little easier to get shared credit. But but your dad apparently did a lot of great work on this. It's a great script. It's very funny. It's very exciting.
If you like the line, "Just the pussy I'm looking for," or goodwill towards men and women, that's the kind of stuff that Wes brought to the picture. He's a wordsmith. He's a completely dirty mind. This film is incredibly horny. Spoilers. Yeah. And that is absolutely my dad's fault. So it's kind of like thinking about my parents having sex when I watch the film, because it's like this weirdly intimate thing. That's also
so it's really exciting for you, and you enjoy it.
Oh,
like we all
absolutely.
Do
What?
Your dad pops up in this lovely book that I bought, this companion piece to the movie. Mm-hmm. It's the official movie book.
I remember that book too.
This was published before the movie came out, I gather.
Did you notice his hair? His hair looked a lot like Tim's, and this is going to come up later. But he was confused for Tim on more than one occasion, to quite abusing result.
I could see that.
Was that on purpose? Was it like an agreement between him and Tim Burton? Like, hey, I'll look like you, and then maybe we can,
And then if anyone tries to assassinate you, they might. Yeah. He's basically just like his decoy dummy.
Did they swap the beret every other day? Like Tim Burton wears that beret all the time.
I feel like there's not enough of those deals going down in our society. Like somebody corners you at a restaurant or a club and they're like, "Hey, we look alike. It's time to do the switcheroo." Maybe that's just because I don't look like anyone else, but I feel like that needs to happen more in real life. But
have you guys ever seen?
Bad.
Do you remember the SNL sketch with, I think it was a Chris Hemsworth one, where they're doing, it's like a gag on the Disney Channel TV shows, and him and I think it's Taron Killam play twin brothers, and Taron Killam's going to go into class and take the big test for his twin brother, and he goes into class and he's like, "It's me, Chad," and the teacher's like, No, you're Zach. Chad's got he's taller and he's bigger but also thinner, if that makes sense. And then his classmates are joining in and they're like, "Yeah, he's got this really strong jawline where your face just kind of turns into your neck, and he's got those things in the back of his arms, triceps, they make his t-shirts really tight, and you just have these noodle arms." And he's like, "Okay guys, you caught me," and they won't stop.
Yeah, but Wes was brought on Batman 2, it was called, or if you were referring to it by its code name, Dick Tell. I don't know if that made it into any publications, but
Dictel?
Dictel, Dictel. It's meant to be slightly corporate, slightly erotic. Keaton and Tim came up with it together, giggling like schoolboys, no doubt. And honestly, from what I've heard, Tim wanted to make the film to correct things that he had done on the making of the first Batman. He's like, if I had another go, much like Jurassic Park 2 Lost World, sort of like, well, it was a huge hit, but if I could go back. And as he did it, he sunk further and further into the why did I think that was a good idea to do it again. But
I could see that.
You know, it had a, you know, they had some laughs.
This movie is pretty infamous for being, like you said, way too dark and sexual and inappropriate for children. Even though this movie is rated PG-13, you know, it's got some interesting things going on that maybe you wouldn't want your kids to see.
I'm pretty sure it would have gone over my head over many viewings, but watching it again recently, I was like, "Mama."
Yeah, you know, watching it last night, I had it with the closed captions on, and there were a couple of lines that I like never noticed before, and I've seen this movie a lot.
Yeah.
As a kid, this was my favorite one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of things went over my head too as a kid, and now, you know, watching it yesterday, I was kind of surprised. And now as a father too, like watching it, I watch movies with my daughter a lot, and like, you know, maybe movies that she's not old enough to see, but I'll just usually fast forward through those parts. Yeah. But this movie, I feel like I couldn't even show her one scene. I can't think of one scene that would be worth showing.
Maybe you could crop the image like a very small square of the film.
Pan and scan just so it's like Batman's face the whole time.
No nipple.
What you got to do is get yourself a Batman costume and then stand in front of the screen, and then you can basically construct a whole new story where you're Batman and, like, you know, you're returning, and yeah, then you can edit out what you need to edit out probably.
Well, speaking of like lizard men, my daughter is in like a lizard phase. She's like obsessed with lizards, and so she is
an animal, cold-blooded.
She's always asking me to be a lizard, so then I just go like this, and I stick my tongue out, and she loves it. She can't tell that if I'm a human or a lizard.
Wow.
But yeah, this movie is pretty different from the first one.
I was surprised they didn't bring Prince back, you know, considering how sexual it is. It seems like they would have been a perfect fit, but
they probably didn't have the money.
yeah, actually, it is a downgrade if you consider the first one was made in the UK, you know, on those Pinewood Studios, I think, where they shoot Bond and Star Wars.
Yes,
and so they Burbank downgrade, but yeah, sometimes it kind of feels like the whole film takes place in one town square, but they make it work in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that the rest of you are going to agree, but I prefer the first film, and the set building seems to be a bigger set on the first one, and this, while the set seems really detailed and intricate, at times it's confusing what the proportions of things are to me. I don't know if you guys felt that.
Well, it feels very much to me enclosed. Like even the outdoor scenes feel indoors, and a lot of the times, like in the background, you could see like a wall and stuff. And I don't know why. Like I feel like today, if it were made, they could just green screen and put like these like epic backgrounds back there. But like they had to work in the confines of the whatever soundstage they were in.
It's really only 4 locations, right? It's Wayne Manor, it's the Shrek offices, it's downtown Gotham,
Town Square,
and the zoo, where the Penguin lives, and that's it. But you know, I do think
inside of Shrek's office is a pretty substantial set.
Yeah, everything that you're saying
outside
is
the
true.
window of Shrek's office as you're falling.
Yeah,
that's a Mike Fink effect right there. Michael Fink, who did an interview with us.
Mike Fink, the man. I mean, that film is actually pretty Like if you've read the book, you would know at the time it had the most ratcheted cars and people in any film to date. That it merges CG puppetry and actual penguins in a near seamless experience. You know, it's actually
Yes.
it's actually like visually it's coherent. It has a nice almost monochromatic, you know, except for like hints of red
Palette.
or blue. It's tightly controlled.
I find the penguins with the rockets on their back annoying and ridiculous and silly, but they do look like penguins with rockets on their back.
Wait, are you
moving
saying
around.
that's a good thing or a bad thing, Colin?
Yes.
'Cause it's hard to tell. It's annoying, ridiculous, and silly sound all like positives for you.
I'm not too sure right now. I'm just considering it.
Well, I don't have as big a problem with the. I feel like they had a more expansive Gotham in the first one, and that served that story better. But this one is a more confined story. That's kind of it's about these two characters, Selena Kyle and Penguin, that are kind of it's more about their arc and their journey, and they kind of have a small room to operate. They don't really go outside of their comfort zone too much. The Penguin basically never leaves his zoo except for his little mayoral excursions, which he seems out of place in. So I do think like the attention they put into the sets they do build though is I think a little bit of an upgrade from the first one, because there's so much detail in the background and there's so much the whole Gothic architecture and the statuary and everything that's in Gotham downtown is so much more like fully fleshed out than in the first one, which just sort of looked like a major city. It looked like 80s New York, and this one really looks like this sort of fantasy world version of that.
And Schumacher agrees with you, and he was watching.
And his only flaw was that it wasn't goofy enough.
The statues weren't three times the size.
He felt like the proportions weren't confusing enough. And he was like, is there any way to make it seem like anything could be any size?
But it's true. He doesn't take to the skies. I know this is weird. Batman doesn't do any flying. So there's not much of a... You get more of a cat's eye view of the city than a bat's eye view. It's very like and even lower in the sewers. It's very like down to earth.
Yeah, there's just the one part where they're standing up on the rooftop is kind of
I mean,
some
like
fights
the
on
first
rooftops, but even the rooftop fights don't seem like they're outdoors, like you said. It almost feels like it would be like something like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney World, where it's like you feel like you're outside, but then you're like, no, that's just a painted ceiling there.
Hazy vistas of tabloid animatronic pirates woozily swaying to and fro.
Why? How did you make it sound so erotic? I've been on that ride.
My dad had a big influence on my upbringing.
He took me on Pirates of the Caribbean, and he did his own narration.
Oh, I bet he took you on. See, great, I did it again. I turned it into an entendre.
Nice.
Sorry, it's just it kind of springs to mind, as Alfred says.
Yeah, so much like the first movie, we spend a lot of time with the other characters and their perspective, and not as much time with Bruce and Batman. And in the first movie, it really served to like do the world building of Gotham City. In this one, it's more character building, and I think if they had been able to make Gotham Plaza physically bigger, it would have served the story more, because in the first movie there's like a clear impression that Gotham is a city that peaked and is now in decay. And I know that we're in the same Gotham, but I don't feel like we spent as much time on that message in the little details.
Yeah, we're in
even
Midtown.
though there's a lot of details.
We're in like near the 30 Rock, like the entire time.
Yeah, well, I think
but the thing is like the tree in 30 Rock is bigger than that tree, and I know that, and I can see it, and that kind of bothers me. You know what I mean?
But I think you're complaining about something that the movie's not trying to be. It's not trying to be the story of a failed Gotham again, because they already told that story. It was the first one, because the story about Gotham failing is a story about why Batman had to come and kick the Joker's ass. So it's connected in the first one. Whereas this isn't trying to tell that story again. So to fault it for not telling the same story is kind of silly. This one's telling a story specifically about these people and how they deal with the personal challenges in their life and how that compares with Bruce Wayne. So it's very much about like Oswald Cobblepot being, born into privilege and then having that stripped away from him, and Selena Kyle being born into oppression and how she, handles that in an unhealthy way. So it's really not concerned with the city. It's concerned with like it should shrink it down and make it smaller because it's really about these characters more specifically.
But it could help you tell that story. It could.
I guess anything could do anything, but they chose not to. So I think it's funny that you would fault it for it if you don't unless you think that it failed to tell those stories well. Because
I'm not going to be allowed to say anything negative about the movie, obviously.
Well, no, say something negative, but don't say something like the sets weren't big enough. That's such an abstract, ridiculous.
I do feel
standard.
the sets were big enough. I don't feel the Plaza set was as big as I would have liked it to be because in the first movie, the main area of Gotham, the set is larger, and you can tell. And
but this is
you
a
can
different
just tell,
movie.
And it would serve the movie better if it was the same
What
size.
about this movie?
This movie would be served better to have the same amount of real estate as that.
I disagree.
Even with the same build.
I think it's a different movie. It should be held to a different standard, and it's got different goals, and it wants to tell a different story. So why would you say it's got to conform to what the first movie did?
I'm saying more real estate on the Gotham Plaza would help tell the story they're trying to tell. That's all I'm saying.
No, because the characters would get lost in all that real estate.
I think it's interesting, though, that the film wasn't as popular as the first one. And the first one was pretty controversial, just leading up to its release about, was it going to work? And so it was a huge hit. People didn't flock to Batman Returns in the same way. And I feel like maybe there was a lot of just hesitance from the studio because of the content of the film as it was being made, that they were sort of getting kind of cold feet about how they were going to promote it and, if it could be as fun as, the Joker. But it had turned into something that was different. So expectations had changed. It was maybe more of a film that Tim wanted to make. And obviously he's focusing more on the villains than he is the heroes. And Keaton felt that quite. He took it personally when they did their first script read, which went pretty well up to the end when Keaton announced, we have a lot of work to do.
Right.
It's kind of like, I feel like I'm not really important in this Batman movie all of a sudden. And, the job is to, massage his ego a little bit. And I feel like he does get a really good amount of screen time as Bruce with Selena. I quite like the little turns towards the end.
And with Alfred.
Are memorable. And Alfred, yeah. Michael Gough, just like the bedrock of these films.
Yeah, get some
The
good
Vichy
Alfred
Soir
scenes.
scene.
Yeah, Vichy Soir. Beautiful.
It's meant to be cold. But yeah, no, it definitely is a different film.
Does anyone know when Michael Keaton's first line in this movie comes? About what the time?
Like a billion years in. I wasn't paying attention. I want to say like Mesozoic era.
It's after the Red
65
Triangle
million years.
Gang attacks, right?
Yeah, he's in that scene, but he doesn't say anything.
Oh yeah, right. He
Is
just
it
walks
to
away.
Selena when he's after he's like you
With
missed
the taser
and then
guy, right?
There's no, he doesn't say.
Oh, no,
anything
he
there,
doesn't say
No, he doesn't say anything. Wow.
Steely.
Yeah.
Yep. All right,
It's
we
a
give up.
scene when he's watching the Penguin. Like the Penguin reveals himself for the first time to the world.
I hope he
and he's
finds his
watching it
parents.
on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That scene.
it's
That's
37
late.
minutes into
Yeah,
the
that's
movie.
late.
Wow,
Well,
that's
I mean,
great.
it is. The movie is focusing on the other characters and building them up because we kind of know who Batman is at that point. So it makes sense in a way that he would be. I mean, I can understand why he, as the star of the movie, would feel slighted, but it also makes perfect sense once he's established to establish the other characters. I think it's funny that you said that you weren't sure that the studios were backing this as aggressively because all I remember about this is the merchandising being everywhere and just that cat, bat, and penguin poster all over the place. I remember the McDonald's promotion and just this was so ubiquitous at the time. And I'm surprised. I knew it wasn't as big as the first one, which is tough because the first one was kind of surprisingly bigger than what people thought it was going to be.
Yes.
But I'm surprised that this wasn't as successful only because in my mind it was everything you wanted from a sequel, and I felt like it did all the things the first one did well, better, in a lot of ways, including being a little darker, which maybe that's the real problem, is they were trying to make a kids movie and they were accidentally making these dark superhero movies that weren't quite, like, not exactly the Nolan gritty reboot, but they also definitely weren't movies for kids. Like, neither one of these movies is a kids movie.
It also manages to increase both the darkness and the ridiculousness, like less groundedness, the furtherness from reality.
True.
And I think at times it runs into trouble with that, but I don't want to say that because it seems taboo.
Well, Colin, if you want to have a stupid opinion, just make sure you say what it is.
I do want to have a stupid opinion. I do.
I don't want you to feel gun shy about criticizing the movie, but actually use a criticism. Don't just say something vague and not back it up.
Well, I think that we should know how Batman became Batman. We never see his parents get killed in any of the films, and I just think it's weird that they don't do it here. And also, to your point, I think it had a marvelous, campaign. That Chip Kid designed poster, and he did the book jacket for Jurassic Park. They spared no expense there. I think the idea was, though, it's easier if you can make toys based on things that happen in the film. I mean, you can always stretch that, but the Penguin's black goop coming out of his mouth, or just sort of how threatening the film is to kids.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of kids in the films.
You should have been able to get black goop and have it fall out of your
Kids love
mouth.
goop now, but in 1992,
this was a world before goop. Goop wasn't as out there as it is now.
I think the constant flow of jet black saliva coming out of his mouth was one of my favorite things in this movie.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah, I love the idea that his biochemistry is so off that his actual saliva is black bile.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg, anyone?
Yeah. Back to
Full
Lizardman.
What's up, losers? No, I'm sorry. That was so aggressive. That's not who I am. Hello, hi, how are you? Chandler Smith here, past and future guest of the License to Watch podcast. I know you were expecting the boys, but they really didn't want to do this Patreon ad, so I'm doing it for them instead because, I am so no, I couldn't keep it going. I'm so bored. So instead, they've allowed me to tell you all about License to Watch's exclusive content Patreon page. For only $1 a month, you can head on over to www.patreon.com/L2W and subscribe right now. For that luscious dollar, you get so much exciting stuff. First of all, you get access to the exclusive non-franchise movie shows that the boys do just for the Patreon subscribers. They've covered such classic movies as The Saint, Total Recall, Commando, Maverick, Scarface, The Untouchables, and most recently the animated classic Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. As a subscriber, you also get a direct channel to communicate with the boys. Let them know what movies you want them to cover, or just tell Colin how much you love his puns. Or don't do that, maybe it's for the best that you don't say anything about the puns. Enough with the puns. So look, you've got nothing else going on in your life. I know it, you know it, we all know it. So just go to www.patreon.com/L2W and become a License to Watch patron today.
We have a lot to unpack with this movie, so I think before we get into it further, I think we should discuss the plot.
Oh shit, is that me
Summarize
again?
it, if you will. I believe so.
I forgot. Oh god. All right.
Oh, come on. You got this plot wrapped around your
Oh my god, I
finger.
couldn't do the last one. How am I going to do this one?
Okay, we start with Pee Wee Herman on it's
Yeah,
Christmas.
exactly.
All right. Okay.
33 years ago.
All right. You got the clock ready?
And
This movie starts with attempted baby murder. Yeah, I'll get the clock
make
ready.
it a blockbuster night.
But I think we can all agree that Cobblepot's wife in the beginning, Mrs. Cobblepot, is hotter than Michelle Pfeiffer.
Why do you smoke so much crack before we do these episodes? You know who
I
that
just wanted
is?
to say that to upset Harris.
You know
I
who
do.
that actress
I do
is?
like her though.
I sure
who
picked
is
the
she?
wrong week to stop using Smilex.
Brand X.
That actress.
All right, you ready?
That actress is the woman who plays. Her name's Diane Salinger.
She's in Pee-wee.
And she plays Simone from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the waitress who wants to go to France.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's great.
They're a great couple.
Yeah.
Is she in anything else? What else is she in?
I don't know. Probably some other stuff. But that's what we would know her from. This movie, by the way, is like chock-a-block with random people that you'll recognize from tiny parts and other things that just
Say no more, because I have so much to say about that. Let's
Oh,
just
good,
summarize
because I want
this
to talk
thing.
about all of them because they're all amazing. I can't even decide which is my favorite random weird person that I was like, hey, is that the guy from... And then looked it up and was like, yeah.
The guy
All right.
who's driving.
It's clearly the newspaper boy. Let's move on.
Yes,
okay,
the guy
here we
who-
go.
Oh
That was
yeah,
wonderful.
him too. Yeah.
Don't forget about
And the
Chip.
guy who drives the train, the baby stealing train. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chip.
Oh my god, I have a lot to
Yeah.
talk about Chip.
Okay. All right.
so
All right. Let's do
much.
the summary.
All right.
All right, here we go. On your mark, get set, Batman Returns.
All right, so on Christmas Day, there's this rich Gotham family, and they have a baby, and the baby is so hideously deformed that they throw him in a basket and throw him into the river, and then the basket washes up in the zoo, and he's adopted by penguins. And 33 years later, this millionaire named Max Schreck, not the German actor, is trying to build a power plant or something, and he's yelling at the mayor. And then they go outside to do a tree lighting ceremony, but this Red Triangle circus gang of freaky-looking circus people attack, and Batman intervenes, and he saves this woman, Selena Kyle, who's Max Schreck's secretary. And but Schreck gets kidnapped, and he goes to the sewer, and he has to meet this guy named the Penguin, who is the baby from before. And he's like this hideous, deformed freak with a long nose and flippers for hands. And he says he wants to like kill Schreck or blackmail him or something. And he's got some nefarious plan. But Schreck's like, hey, what if we make you mayor? So they come up with this plan. And they, meanwhile, Schreck goes back to his office and he finds Selena there. And she's looking at some contracts for his big meeting with Bruce Wayne, and she sees something that she shouldn't have, like that he's doing something illegal, so he pushes her out a window, but she survives. Okay, so she goes home, and she makes a Catwoman outfit. So then the Penguin comes, and the Triangle Gang kidnaps a baby, and the Penguin rescues the baby, and he becomes a hero of the city, and he's going to run for mayor. And then Catwoman comes, and she's trying to like fuck up Shrek's business, and she blows up his shopping mall. And then she meets Batman and Penguin, and Batman is suspicious of Penguin. He doesn't think he's a real hero. And meanwhile, Penguin is trying to find all these baby names, and he finds out that his real name, and then he goes out into the city. But then he's and then he tries to he and the Catwoman try to frame Batman for doing some crimes, but then Batman actually records him saying some nasty stuff, and he turns the people against him. And then they get into this big fight where Penguin's going to blow everything up with rockets, and Batman stops it and blows the Penguin up, and he falls into the water. And then Schreck gets kidnapped by Catwoman, and then she kills him with electricity. And then, but she doesn't die, and then Penguin does die, and the Penguins do a little funeral, and I think that's the end. Man, this is not good.
Okay. All right.
How the mighty hath fallen.
All right.
You make it sound like a pretty fun roller coaster ride, Harris.
Well, that's what I was going for.
Yeah,
Interesting.
ups and downs.
Weird because we just were talking about how roller coaster rides can kill you just before we got on this Zoom call, which is weird.
Yeah, pregnant women should not ride. Check with your doctor if you are.
I'm not allowed to go on a lot of roller coasters because I'm too big, and they're afraid my hands or feet will get lopped off.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid for you.
They're like, sir, you must be this tall to ride. And he's like, I am. And then they're like, yeah, but you must be this short to ride
they
also.
have sticks that have like you got to be between here and here.
But we filmed the experience, so you can watch it sitting on this bench.
But not that bench. You have to be this tall to sit on that bench.
That's why he made those special pants that look like he had a really big butt, but it's really his heels are taped to his butt cheeks so he can walk
like a
around on
dwarf.
his knees.
A dwarf golfing
Yeah.
type of thing.
Are we talking about the
To get
Penguin
me
or
on the ride.
Harris here? Because the Penguin had cakes. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Penguin, I think.
Let's talk about the Penguin.
Yeah, I want to get into the Penguin. I think this, for the first hour and a half, maybe the first act, is one of the best possible, ideas for how you can flesh out the Penguin character. Being a big Batman fan, what I don't like, even though this opinion may be stupid, is that it's not the Penguin's idea to become the mayor. It's Shrek's idea. I don't think Shrek needs to be that important of a character. I do think we need to see that the Penguin is really thinking ahead as a criminal to really emphasize that he is the villain. And what I think the Penguin should be, and what I think the original idea of the character from the Batman intellectual property is, he is symbolic of both the aristocracy and the most base level of criminal. And what we see is that Tim Burton's trying to give us both, and he's giving us the most base level. He's gross. He maybe fucks penguins. We don't know. And also he wants what the aristocracy
Reading
wants.
way between the lines there.
Yeah, but he wants that respect and that honor of aristocracy and the things that come with it, the material and stuff like that. And when it's not hard for Shrek to convince him of that, but he should want both those things, like, as a character originally. And I think it would have better served the character and the story if Penguin was, like, already knew that Shrek needed a puppet mayor and already wanted to do that.
Well, now that's a well-argued opinion.
He spends way too much time in the dirty pajamas.
Counter argument: unlimited poontang.
Yes.
That was one of the lines that I never heard before.
Yeah.
And I loved every second of it.
As spoken by Walken himself.
That's a great point, because I would argue that the Penguin is the real, like, kind of protagonist of this movie. And in that sense, he's a weaker protagonist because he is so directionless and he is so manipulated by Shrek, and he sort of forgets what his original mission was, and then his original mission doesn't even make a lot of sense. And it's kind of like, if he had a little more drive.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what Jacob alluded to earlier, that his plan was kind of all over the place. And,
Right, I think-
So I actually I wrote it down this time because I wanted to really get like what his plan was. So the Penguin's plan: step 1, blackmail Shrek into shaping the Penguin's rise into high society. So he wants to rise up.
Yeah, so
and
why
become...
wouldn't he already know he wants to be mayor? Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
So step 2, get the names of all the firstborn sons of Gotham under the guise of looking for your birth parents, because according to Batman, he already knows who his birth parents are, and him getting those names is like, that's his original plan, is he's going to get the names of the kids so that he can murder them, right? So he already has this plan from the beginning. Then an offshoot of step 2 is run for mayor and get unlimited poontang, as promised by
It's called the
Shrek.
side hustle.
His side hustle, yes. Then wait, I'm still going. Sorry.
go,
So
go.
then the next step, I'm calling this step 2B, frame Batman, because then suddenly Batman is brought to his attention. Not really a thorn in his side quite yet, but Catwoman, a lustful character, convinces him that he is a thorn in his side and he needs to do something about it.
Well, he wants to kill Batman, and she convinces him to not kill him and embarrass him instead. But then he still wants to kill him.
Yeah, to frame him, right? So then step...
That was parts D and E of the plan.
Right.
Yeah. So now I put the next step is kidnap the first sons of Gotham and kill them. So now he's going back to his original plan. And then an offshoot of that is blow up Gotham with rocket-strapped penguins. So the original thing was the kids. He just wanted to get back at the aristocracy, like you said. He wanted to get back at the higher echelon of people who cast him out by murdering their children. There you go.
Right. So another thing I don't like about the movie is, so he has issues because he's an orphan, right? Rather than like really, and the plan is confusing. So it's not really communicated to us very well, like why the issues lead to the plan. And something I don't like about the performances in this movie, particularly like when we get to the scene where Catwoman and Penguin are talking to each other in the weird bedroom and all that stuff is going on. Their dialogue is good, but it also is weird to me, the performances. So when I was like younger, I was in an acting class and we did like an exercise, right? Where it's just like insane asylum, okay? And this was with like, high school kids, and everyone wants to do insane asylum as like, young kids getting to act, right? Because then they just get to be manic and like fuck around and say stupid shit and like scream and run around, blah, 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 right? But that's like not the point of the exercise. Like that's not what mental illness is. Like in this movie, yeah, these characters have problems that make them psychotic, but it seems like they're victimized more by their own psychosis than they are having their psychosis caused by whatever they're actually victimized by.
Well, I would argue that in the case of Catwoman and the Penguin, that it's a choice functionally, that generous read, but like Batman, Catwoman, Penguin start kind of at like maybe from a similar place, and they choose to do better or worse. That it's not exactly nurture as much as nature. You disagree with me if you like, but I think because the Penguin says like I'm a genuine freak and you're not, but I would say they are equally freaky. But the Penguin wants to associate with the Red Triangle Circus Gang. He doesn't trust the world that's poisoned itself. He's more interested in people who are already cast off.
I understand that, but at times I feel like there's a lot of just kind of over the top stuff in this movie.
Well, hell yeah, there is.
Like
she's dressed like in this skin tight suit, and they had to like vacuum it around her body, and then he's like the trash man, and he gets in the ring and he throws trash.
You feel like there's some over the top stuff in this comic book movie about superheroes and man penguins and
yeah.
Really?
I mean,
is that a criticism or
there are times where it's like, are they being an over-the-top character, or are they being, like, manic for being manic's sake?
I think Tim's just trying to find, like, his take on a hideous penguin boy.
I didn't feel like there was anything that particularly manic about either one of these characters in terms of, like, acting crazy. There was some...
Why did she put the bird in her mouth?
And she did actually put the bird in her mouth. That's a real bird in her mouth.
Yeah, and it's, like, one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, it's.
She actually swallowed it too and digested it, but they cut away.
They had to cut. That was like the fourth bird, the one that flew out, because
all
the
the
rest of
acting.
them died, and
that's how it's done.
Yeah, she was very committed to it.
That's how it's done.
Yeah, no, I think that's what the thing. I mean, Nicholson in the last movie was very big. I think playing a Batman villain sometimes involves a lot of broadness in the performance. And I think these characters pull it off and earn it in a way. Like if you take for granted the situation that there's a man beast who's raised by penguins and circus people and becomes a gang leader, or a meek and mild woman who gets tossed out of a window, and you say like these are the things, and then becomes like a vigilante acrobat. Like if you accept that as like a realistic possibility, I don't think it's too much of a stretch for the performances to be a little big. But I do think there's like some legitimate pathos. There are small moments in both of those performances that I thought was really impressive, where they're finding some real character underneath all the cartoony artifice.
Yeah, especially Michelle Pfeiffer's scene with Bruce Wayne, or all her scenes with Bruce Wayne. I think that's the best part of her performance. Her in the cat suit, I don't think is as good. I guess for kind of this reason. It's not that I don't accept what they're doing. It's not that I don't think they totally, in many ways, are very much succeeding at what they're trying to do, what they're being directed to do, what Tim Burton's trying to do. It's just that like I for my my reception, it's not quite landing the way Jack Nicholson landed.
Your reception's broken,
Colin. I think I know what you're saying. Like while I agree with Harris that like this is a comic book movie, and this it's a rare opportunity to get to play a Batman villain. It's like you want to go as big as possible. And while Jack Nicholson did it in the last movie, and you totally buy it, even though like you're able to suspend your disbelief enough to know that this is ultimately a kid's movie, even though it's like not really for kids. It's like based on a kid's property, like it's a comic book movie,
Yes.
So now this movie is doing the same thing, but now, and I started to feel this a little bit only in that scene in particular, or like, I guess scenes where they're all together, it becomes, like absurd. It's
Cartoonish.
so absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cartoonish. Like when the Penguin and Catwoman are like talking to one another about killing Batman, or like they're all in the town square together and the three of them meet up. It's like those are the scenes that make you kind of almost get to the point, and probably for you, and some other people, like to actually roll your eyes and say like, what am I watching? And whereas the first movie didn't really like reach that level, maybe because it was only one villain, maybe because Jack Nicholson's a better actor, who knows? Mm-hmm. But in this movie, I feel like they went a little too far sometimes with that sort of thing, and it makes suspending your disbelief a little harder to do.
Well, one of the first things we said is that this was less realistic than the first one, and that's absolutely true. I do think that I don't think you can blame the performances, though, only because I do think the performances keep real characters in this ridiculous situation. Like, Colin, what you said about how when she's wearing the cat suit, you don't buy her. But I think that's sort of the point, is that like it's all posturing when she's got the catsuit on. And what I think is really interesting about her performance in particular is towards the end of the movie, when she's becoming more frazzled and starting to second guess her choices. Then when she's in the catsuit, you start to see in a lot of subtle ways her not being totally committed to that act that she's got going on, which I think is really a really smart and effective way to play that character.
Yeah. Are we going into Catwoman yet, or are we still on Penguin? Or
I had no idea there was any structure. I thought Colin was airing grievances, and I was.
Yeah, I know.
That's what
I still really like the movie in general. It's just like
it's not coming off.
It's
Here, let me critique your performance. I feel like if you're going to really like the movie in general, I feel like your performance should sell that a little better, because right now I'm not receiving it in that way.
Wow.
I think we're all in agreement. We all seem to like this movie, and we, even in the last podcast, we talked about how we were all excited to talk about this movie.
Liars.
I think, this movie's been talked about by everyone for the past 30 years, and now it's finally time to look back and say,
but they never heard my side of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to give it I just want to get at it with a little bit of teeth, like a little al dente, like give it a little bite back,
Yeah.
Well, I agree with some of the things you're saying when you're right.
Well,
it's funny because I feel like this attitude is kind of where Batman ended up. It's like the pendulum did swing. It got bigger and bigger until it had to go so hard the other direction. So I feel like we are seeing the escalation begin here.
Yeah, I know we're like not on Batman Forever yet, but I definitely see it as part of a trajectory that was started before it.
This is the strongest criticism you can make to get me sympathetic to your argument against this movie, is that this led to the Schumacher ones, which is pretty damning and also makes a lot of sense.
Well, they didn't ask Tim back. They did for Superman Returns, and that, that was another Wesley Strick, Tim Burton, collaboration.
Joint.
That could be an
I kind
entire.
of feel like that should be a bonus podcast. It's just talking about your dad doing.
Well, it's he's had
a movie that never was.
There's a great documentary if you haven't seen the Superman.
I've seen
Lives, it. And he and the other writers are interviewed in it, but
we
yeah,
talked a little bit about John Peters, the last podcast, trying to get a mechanical spider into everything he ever did.
The snare beast, yeah.
So are we on Catwoman now? Can I do my problem with Catwoman?
Oh God.
Problem
Sure,
Catwoman.
I feel like you've already voiced a lot of problems with Catwoman, but go ahead.
Besides the fact that they could have chose Sean Young.
Okay, I have a story when you're ready about that.
I think we should do this story first, because I was gonna.
Yeah,
go
let's
into,
hear the story.
Okay, this.
Colin was
Remember
gonna
how
have
I
another
mentioned my
monologue.
dad had longer, slightly curly hair then, and as he put it, he was styling it a little after Bob Dylan, whereas Tim was going for more of The Cure. But they were, from a distance, Sean Young took my dad.
That sounds like
for
two
Tim.
guys who do Mr. Jones and Me as a karaoke. You know what I mean?
God, what a great mental image. She snuck on the lot. She had been, in her mind, promised the role of Catwoman by Tim at some point. There was a sense that she was betrayed and was looking for him, was really upset, wasn't really supposed to be on the lot, did get on, under her own volition. And Tim literally hid behind the desk when she came by.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
He was just terrified. And then, maybe the next day she appeared on television. By the way, during this...
I watched this.
Yes,
yeah,
she
Joan
had
Rivers,
made
we
her
watched
own
this.
Catwoman costume. It was very upsetting to Tim. It just is not a confrontational person, so that was. But she was like, at first she snapped at Wesley, thinking like, "There's the guy." And he's like, "Oh, wait,
right, yeah.
do you know where Tim is?" And he didn't know what was going on. So he was like, "I think he's in his office," and she's like, "No, he
Try
can't
under
be
the
because
desk.
I just went there and he wasn't there." And Tim's like, "Ah." So that happened.
Wow.
That's cool. Did he know who she was?
Yeah, but like everything didn't connect quickly enough.
But he'd never met her,
He
right?
didn't know the totality of
Yeah.
the situation.
Later, I would work on a film where Sean Young appeared. It was
Ooh,
called
I wanna hear about that.
Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader in 3D by Roger
Oh,
Corman.
nice.
But I
What was
never
she like?
relayed the message. She was actually, kind of sweet then.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
No hard feelings.
My criticism of Catwoman is a little bit similar to my criticism of the Penguin, in that I see the Penguin character coming from, the world of Batman as being a stronger character, and so I thought there could have been more there. We talked about that, right?
Yeah, the crime boss version of the Penguin.
In the world of Batman, Catwoman is usually a very strong character to begin with. She is empowered. She is the type of woman who is empowered, as a woman. Basically, that's part of her personality. And in this movie, it serves the story being told and the character we see. She is empowered only after suffering trauma. And I feel like I want to see more of where this empowered woman comes from inside of her. I understand that she's oppressed as a woman, but to me, that's not exactly what the Catwoman character is. Like, she's empowered by becoming Catwoman not because of trauma. She's empowered by becoming Catwoman because of choice. And she's also a cat burglar, and she does not fucking cat burglar anything in this movie.
No, definitely
she doesn't
not.
even
Yeah.
steal. She's like a terrorist.
It's an exploration of a different character, and I think again it goes back to choices because, and this was even mentioned that she starts to turn the persona off by the end because I think
Right.
what Catwoman is, and they mentioned Vicky Vale a surprising amount for a character who doesn't appear because they say I couldn't stop being Batman with her because she didn't understand my dual identity, but Catwoman does. I think that's the function of Catwoman is to say this is the one time Bruce could actually retire.
See, but again, like, I think the story would have been better served by not having her empowerment tangled up with her trauma.
But there has to
because
be,
you
there
can
has
still
to be
have
another
that.
side to her, the side that
I
walks
know.
away. Unlike Anne Hathaway, who I never believed for a second would stop being Catwoman, and then they like f off.
Oh
to-
no! All you got to do is go
to
to the
wherever.
cafe and
And
hang out.
And I looked at the table, and there you were, Anne Hathaway.
But to-
by
to
the
me,
way,
Anne
she was
Hathaway's
great.
Catwoman
no,
is-
yeah, all praise to her.
Yeah, is much more of what I see the Catwoman
Yeah.
character as being.
Well, see, this is the kind. Maybe it's being a writer or working with writers or something like this. But this is the kind of note that isn't helpful when you're working with writers. Is the note that like, well, yeah, this works for this story, but I think it would have been better if you had done something totally different. You know, like it's like, well, if I was doing it, I would have written a different Catwoman, but that's not the Catwoman they wrote. And I mean, I don't think, if you're judging it on its merit, I don't think there's anything that, like, yeah, they didn't stick to she's not a cat burglar and she was in the comic book. So, you know, that's like a fanboy complaint. But I'm just saying that, like,
I mean, yeah, but
we're all fanboys here.
Yeah, but from a writer's perspective, these things I'm saying, like, I think they serve the story better. I'm gonna go ahead and like skip ahead to more of what I think. My problem with the movie is the end, and the beginning of the story that's being told, I think, is well served by these things I'm saying. The problem is, like what you were saying, was like they didn't actually know the end until they got there. If that didn't happen, these are kind of changes you could make in like pre-production. You know, like, we want her to be stronger from the beginning. We want to see that.
But,
we want Penguin to be
I
smarter
just-
from the beginning
this-
and stuff like that. And
why
that
would
would
you want her to
affect
be
a better
It's-
end to the movie.
It's not a character arc if she starts out strong. This is like writing 101 is don't have
you
your
can
characters
you can
start
be
at-
strong and suffer trauma. Like, you know, like, you don't have to, like...
But okay, so listen, I'm not going to argue about whether you can be strong or whether a totally different version of this script would have been better or worse, because that's stupid, and we shouldn't be talking about like whether some completely different version of these characters in this script, how that would have compared
we
to
do
this
that all
version.
the time.
That doesn't, well, it doesn't make it. I mean, it just
May,
doesn't make
may
any
I
sense.
may I butt in?
Yes, please.
I'm going to give my strict expertise. Michelle Pfeiffer didn't want to be Julie Newmar. If there were moments that felt a little too on the nose with the cat part, she definitely was pushing against that.
Right.
She just that was when she was working with Wesley and polishing the dialogue. That was a concern of hers. So I
like
think
when she's cleaning herself.
I think she wanted to keep it to a minimum, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if
Well,
anything,
I mean-
I think it might come from her understanding of Selena is informing
One
her
thing-
Catwoman more than the other
It
way
is, and I
around.
think she's performing that character and everything. And I'm not telling her to be the Catwoman I've seen before. I'm just saying, like, I think, you know, the story is better served by understanding, like, that she's empowered not just because she suffered trauma.
And I think
you know.
most stories are better served when you actually see the characters go through changes and experience conflict. And
But
I mean, this isn't a revolutionary
That's not against
concept.
what
This
I'm
is
saying. That's
basically
not different than what I'm saying, though.
It sounds a lot different than what you're saying, but
Well, I think like what Jacob was saying before, that like Anne Hathaway's interpretation of the character, she starts off strong. Like her arc is just different. You know, I disagree with what Harris is saying, but and I kind of align with what Colin's saying. I understand, but
so you
I
feel
think
like
also
you feel like this Catwoman fails because she starts off weak and becomes strong.
Well,
No,
she
I'm
Well,
not
then
saying
what's the
that.
problem? This is, I mean, Colin's argument.
I'm not
is-
saying
I think
there's a
she
problem.
You don't
Colin's
have
argument is
to.
that
You don't have
this
to
doesn't
fail
work.
to like potentially be
Well,
better.
I-
this
I
is
don't think we
literally
should
what
be talking over each
Catwoman
other,
does.
but-
Catwoman shows up and all the men start fighting over her. This is exactly we were playing into her hands, guys.
I was going to say one thing that I always appreciated about Tim Burton's like interpretation of these characters in this movie is that, like, okay, so we know Catwoman's backstory. We know what she is from the TV show, from the comic books, whatever. And we know what the Penguin is. He's a crime boss, whatever. Tim Burton kind of threw all that stuff out the window and said, I want to create new backstories for both of these characters. And, like, you know, I'm, as a viewer, able to like put those to the side and say, okay, I'm seeing a new, like, revisionist version of these characters, and I'm just going to take it for what it is. So, like, no, I don't feel like anything is missing from the character. I do tend to... I wish the Penguin, and maybe now as an adult watching this, like, I wish the Penguin was a bit smarter, and I wish he had a grand, like, master plan that would have made him a more compelling villain. I personally feel like he is a zero threat to Batman throughout this entire movie, and, like, anything he comes up with, Batman
And when he pulls
thwarts
the
in,
umbrella
like,
out at the,
the
end,
next
he's
scene.
like, I grabbed the cute one.
Yeah.
He
I
doesn't
love
just say
that.
the
I
cute
love
one. He
that.
says
Do
the
you
cute
think-
one. I think.
Do you think this is why Two-Face in Forever starts out in media res, absolutely like no connection to Batman? It just like already is evil and never backs down. Like from that, like he's kind of already just like we get the Riddler's arc, but we just skip Two-Face.
Maybe they just felt like it was too many arcs to put in one movie.
Well, I felt like they did the same thing with this movie, where like the Penguin is already the Penguin, but we
Right.
see Catwoman become.
Yeah,
Catwoman.
we don't really
you can't
see
do
his,
like
his
two.
creation myth. We just get the beginning at the very start of the movie. But I guess my bigger point is, and I agree with everything Matt said there, and I do feel like the Penguin could be a better villain. But I feel like if you, as many people do, accept that these characters work, then it's kind of inane to say, but we should really change these characters because of some, I don't know. I don't understand what you're saying, Colin, is I guess what I'm getting at. If these characters work, if these characters don't work for you, then that's
no matter
fine,
what
but,
I
think
say,
that's an
it's
opinion.
not gonna. You're not gonna accept what I say. You know, like.
Well, I think if what you were saying made
it's a
sense,
paradox.
I would accept it, but you know.
Well,
I
the thing
agree
is,
with
like,
what
I don't
Matt
like the
said.
movie as much as you. So the challenge for me is to explain what I don't like. But if I explain what I don't like it as much as you. So I can't.
Well, no, but I mean,
you
what are
know?
you explaining that you don't like? Do you not think the Catwoman arc works?
I think, you don't have to fail to also have the opportunity to be better.
No, but
you know what I
Are
mean?
you
also
taking? Are you coming at that from
like,
almost
you
like
can-
a feminist point of view, where it's like you hate that she is created as a result of like female trauma?
That does bother me. Yeah, like I didn't want to bring that into this because like I'm a man.
You could take every movie and say, well, you could have done this way, or you could have done that way. But if the movie works, then what is the problem?
But I'm not allowed to say that it could be better because you are saying that
That's
I
not
can't
what's
say
going on here
anything
at all.
about the movie if I'm saying that it
Well,
could
that's
be better.
that's not what's happening. But
I would like to argue that the film isn't. It's not about power. I think the struggle for power, the Shreks of the world and the running for mayor, all that is a dead end. At the end of the day, Shrek dies. Penguin's not the mayor. All of that power grabbing was meaningless because the film is about being alone. The Penguin is alone. Catwoman is alone. Batman is alone, and they all deal with it very differently. And it goes back to the choice of what you want to do with your self empowerment. And I think Catwoman initially is going to take it out on every man she sees, and she's going to back down from that once she meets the one good guy in her life, who turns out to also be the guy she's trying to kill. So
Yes.
I think it's a film about Christmas time, the loneliest time of year.
Yeah.
well, you're saying it's being alone, but isn't it also about trauma? Isn't it about the traumas that they've experienced and which is being alone is part of that, but isn't it kind of about like the tragedy that's in their life that's left them alone?
I think Tim identifies with the trauma, though. Like, I don't think Tim looks at that and says, and they're fucked up and that's bad. I think they're fucked up and that's kind of cool because I'm a fucked up, spooky guy.
Yeah.
Well, they're fucked up, but they all deal with it in different ways, and that's kind of what's interesting about this movie is how three different characters, handle their loneliness and their tragedy in their lives.
And they come together, sometimes awkwardly in a group of three, sometimes in pairs. But I really think the film is about those relationships and like how they're good relationships, bad relationships. But at the end of the day, I think Bruce and Selena could have been happy together. We don't get to see it for very long though.
No, we could have seen another scene with them. That would have been nice, just because that scene was good. Here's a difference between like this Batman in general, and this Catwoman. Batman becomes Batman because his parents were killed, but the potential to be Batman is like a strength that he had before they were killed. Like, there's the Flashpoint paradox. We see a world where Bruce is killed instead of Thomas, and Thomas becomes Batman. In Batman the Animated Series, we see when Batman is struck with the fear gas, the fear toxin, his greatest fear is that his parents are ashamed of him, which, harkens the idea that he's still trying to do something that if they were alive, they could approve of in some way. Like, even though he is definitely Batman because they're dead, there is a sense that he had the strength to become something even when they knew him as like an 8-year-old, you know, versus Selena Kyle before becoming Catwoman is super downtrodden. And yeah, like I didn't want to, because I'm a man, I didn't want to like try to like approach it as like, this is not, you know, good from a feminist perspective, because they just take too much of her power. Because I do think it is like important to show that women can be oppressed in this way. But yeah, like I think that maybe it could have been a better character if she had a little more empowerment from the beginning. I think that's possible. And tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. But that's what I think.
Yes, please.
Let's talk about some of the side characters, like you were saying, Harris. That there's a lot of,
and they are legion.
There's obviously Newspaper Boy, who is from Twister.
Sean Whalen, also from the Aaron Burr commercial, which every time I see him in any movie, I'm always like, Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr.
Haunting.
The peanut butter thing?
Yeah. It's the best. And as soon as I saw him as the Paperboy, I was like, "Oh my God, it's that guy! That guy from
That's
that
guy! I knew I saw that guy somewhere."
He really sells turn of the century street wharf. I don't know.
Yeah. Before that,
Hawking papers.
We have the Pee-wee cameo as Penguin's father,
and this is
Paul
post media
masturbating in a theater,
which, by the way, not illegal.
Yeah, now it's actually. Not only is it no longer something that could ruin his career, now it might actually make him more famous if he masturbated in it.
Yeah.
Now it's smiled upon.
Put that shit on TikTok.
We lionize our theatrical masturbators.
Yeah, make sure you tag the theater. Make sure you tag the theater in your post.
Exactly.
So they originally wanted Burgess Meredith to play that role, but he was basically about to die.
He flew the coop.
Burgess Meredith was actually 1,000 years old when he was on the TV show, so he was 1,000,000 years old when this came out. But I think this was Paul Rubin's first like public gig after he lost the Pee-wee show because of that, and sort of they thought that his career was going to be totally over, and he didn't really work a lot after this, but he for a few years, but it was like a slow climb to kind of.
I remember Blow. But everything else is a blur.
He had a run on Murphy Brown.
Blow.
Blue.
Yeah, he did another Pee-wee movie eventually.
He did one recently on Netflix.
Paul is a good guy. He deserves. He deserves.
And
everything.
It's another kind of I think the biggest problem was too that he was known for a kids show, but once again. It was a kids show based on his Groundlings act, which was very much an adult comedy show, and he was an adult comedian doing this weird kind of. And then he made the movie with Tim Burton, which was kind of. If you watch the movie, it is not a movie for kids, even though we sort of remember it as a childlike movie.
It's ageless.
It's a great film, but it's definitely the humor is targeted at grown-ups, and then he sort of ended up doing this kids show for years, and so then like. Masturbating in a theater could ruin your career if that's your trajectory, but at the same time everything he had done before that show was very adult oriented comedy, so it kind of was a weird fit anyways.
Who is the guy who drives the train with the baby kidnap train? He also has the music box thing with the gun inside of it.
Vincent Schiavelli?
Yeah, where have I seen him? I know him.
Where haven't you seen him?
He's the Get Off My Train guy from Ghost.
Yeah, he's also
he's
also in a Bond movie.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
He's the one who hypnotizes Bond.
Oh, he's the German guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
what movie
right.
is that? It's a Brosnan one, right?
World Is Not Enough, I
the
think.
world. No, that's
Or no, is it Tomorrow Never Dies?
Oh yeah, it's definitely Tomorrow Never Dies. Yep.
Yeah, and then when he gets out of that's when he starts using the remote control with the car, and then they blow the two windshields out, and then they shoot the rocket, and it goes through both the windshields. Yeah.
But yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is probably something too.
Seen that. Yeah.
So Chip Shrek, one of my favorites, Andrew Brianarski, is the
Street Fighter.
He's Zangief from Street Fighter, the movie.
Yes.
No.
Wow. Yes.
And he's also the crazy football player with the skull painted on his face in that movie, The Program, with James Caan.
Oh, he's the program guy.
Yeah, he's the program guy, like the famous football player from The Program. He also played Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes. But his real claim to fame is Zangief, obviously.
Oh,
that's
my
the
God.
career highlight for that guy.
I would know him more from the program, actually. In the program, he like puts clean piss into his own bladder with like a syringe.
Yep. And he also flips over a
because
small
he's-
car by himself.
Yeah, because he's so fucking
roided out.
juiced.
Yeah, props to his like sort of Walken-esque effect to it. Watch out, Dad!
I love
you
it.
know?
Oh yeah, it's so good. I
Dad, let's
Dad.
address the masses or whatever he said.
Dad,
Yeah, it's so
run,
good.
save yourself.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Dad,
Save
go.
yourself.
Honestly, I think honestly, if you were filling out his resume for him, you would put I played Zangief in Street Fighter first. But what I will always know him best from is this movie, just because of that line. Dad, run, save yourself.
Save yourself.
I love that that Bruce Wayne just sits around. We're led to believe that Bruce Wayne just sits at his like study waiting for the bat signal.
Not for the bat signal, for the
Aren't they just-
auxiliary bat signal that only exists in his house. Imagine you're driving
Yeah.
by the manor. You're like, why are there 4 bat signals? Like,
On his roof.
Yeah. It's mirrors that redirect the actual signal.
He's sitting there all night just going, really? No crime?
nothing on
Nothing?
TV.
Maybe I'll go take a little drive. I don't know.
Aren't there like 2 different scenes where he's in the like by the fireplace and the couch and Alfred is just like
Decorating the tree.
the Christmas tree's already decorated and up and like it's already, you know, like he's just like looking at it like what is he doing?
Yeah. I also
Master Wayne, would you mind helping me hang these ornaments? Fuck off, Alfred.
what do I pay you for?
Yeah.
Chicks dig the ornaments.
I would like a scene where he's like he does try to get Bruce to hang ornaments and they have like extreme sentimental value to Alfred and Bruce is just like blowing him off.
Bruce is just like staring out the window going, can't hang ornaments, gotta watch for bat signal.
Oh, well, this is one your parents gave me the
I
day
might miss
before
it.
they died, and they would have liked for us to hang it together before they died, before they were
Alfred,
murdered.
I
in front
just
of you.
looked away from the window to answer your stupid ass, and I might have missed some bat signaling.
Did you guys catch that in Shrek's office, there's a bunch of pictures on the walls of him with celebrities?
Yeah, I noticed that.
No, I missed
What are the
it.
celebrities?
And one of them, the one that's like clearest to see, is him with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, a little foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. It's Victor Fries.
Yeah. Victor
for the uninitiated.
I think I love everything about the Max Shrek character. I don't care that he wasn't a real. I mean, I think it's kind of weird that they couldn't have just found a comic book like today. They would just find a comic book character that was in
Roland
one of the comics.
Daggett?
Yeah,
You know what?
some random name, and they would just be like, "Yeah, that's a guy from a comic book. We'll put him in the movie." But I think it's odd that they named him after like a famous German actor without changing anything about the name. Like Max Shrek.
One
is
letter
just-
they
Max Shrek
changed.
is a guy that's from Nosferatu and played the and was in a lot of other things too. But I do love his costume. All of his costumes, his hair, everything about him is just going like, yeah, we know he's not in the comics, but we're making him into a comic book character. This guy seems like he should be
Yeah.
ripped from a comic.
From the very first frame that he is in, it's clear that he's evil. Like the hair,
Oh, yeah.
the power plant thing is behind him, the little model of it, and it's like it's clear that that power plant is like some kind of evil thing.
It's a villain's lair.
All the cooling towers are like in the shape of skulls.
Yeah.
You know, it struck me there were a lot of you know, New York parallels to this Gotham. The Central Park of the baby dumping intro, which sort of combines with the zoo, if you're familiar with the geography. So, is it a stretch to say that he might be Trumpian
Yeah.
analog? It's funny. I've gone back to watch so many movies, and I see him everywhere now. Like, oh, that's
Dad,
what
go,
they were
save
going
yourself.
for.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's
It's like
kind of fascinating.
Blue Bloods tire easy. You got enough to go 12 rounds with the champ.
Muhammad Shrek.
Muhammad
oh, yeah,
Shrek, yeah.
Muhammad
Yeah.
Shrek.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, well, the other correlation to Trump is that he's so like greedy, obviously greedy, and like, you know, his whole plan makes no sense because they say several times that Gotham City's doing all right power-wise.
Civics.
Too much
Terrible.
power. Bruce, shame on you. No such thing.
I would have liked to see like an Eric metaphor character, because clearly Chip is John Jr. and maybe even an Ivanka character, but that then with that those sexual.
Didn't you see the
innuendos would have been
Chihuahua?
Really
The
bad.
stuffed Chihuahua?
Oh yeah.
Here's a fun behind the scenes Shrek fact. Although there aren't too many examples of it in the film, one of the things that Walken offered up for the character is malapropisms, phrases that he would intentionally get wrong. So when he says something like, I have better fish to fry, that was like supposed to be a Max Schreckian affect.
Yeah. Because it's supposed to be bigger fish to fry,
Yes,
not better,
correct.
right?
Yeah, I feel like every single. I couldn't even tell if the Walken lines were good, or if it was just that every line he delivers is just seemed memorable. Like when I was coming up with like quotes that I liked in this movie, it was like, okay, every Walken line, even though some of them aren't even significant, it's just the way he says them is so good.
The way he holds a fish and dangles it in front of Danny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about random guys. Did you catch the? So I saw just a flash of the guy's face when he was, at the mic stealing the baby, but the acrobat clown who steals the baby, and he says,
No,
"I'm not really one for speeches, so I'm just going to say thanks." That is Gregory Scott Cummins, aka the goon who gets ridden like a toboggan in Cliffhanger, aka Matt's dad from Always Sunny.
Nice.
Wow.
Wow.
Cool.
That was my favorite one of the movie.
That's pretty good.
I noticed the one of the women who's the image consultant.
Jan Hooks.
She's from
Jan Hooks,
SNL.
yeah.
She's
yeah,
a,
the
like an
height,
SNL
this
actress.
is the height of her SNL run, and also she was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure too. So this may be the Tim Burton connection there.
And the guy who gets his nose bitten off, he's very familiar too. He was in a lot of commercials.
Yes, that's why I was looking at his IMDb, and I was like, he wasn't in anything, but he was in a ton of commercials.
He's still in commercials. I see him recently, and I'm like, that's the guy from Batman Returns.
Yep.
He had a hell of a hairstyle in this one. Speaking of hairstyles earlier, like this was his hairstyle in this one with those glasses.
Mm-hmm.
That was a peak moment for that look.
It's like the Egon look.
Yeah. But like a little more styly, like a
Phil.
little more modelly. Yeah.
Could be worse. My nose could be gushing blood, and everyone fake laughs.
Yeah, I love that.
Where was that?
Yeah, I love the room full of people. Is like, okay, well, I'm still ready to get to work after that. This
Yeah,
guy's gonna be
exactly.
mayor. This
Let's
guy's
make a
gonna be
mayor.
fucking mayor. Yeah.
Burn,
I
baby,
just
burn.
imagine I'm ready. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna call some constituents.
You go to a work meeting and watch a guy bite a guy's nose off, and then they're like, back to work, and you're just like, all right, just shrug it off.
Speaking of quotes, what are our favorite quotes from this movie? I've got two, but they're both Penguin quotes, but they are far and away the best in the movie.
I have a really good one. It's from the scene where they show the crowd, again in the town square, everyone's reading the newspaper at the same time, and they're all reading headlines, and one guy's like, he's like a frog that became a prince, and someone else goes, no, he's more like a penguin.
Oh, that's my my favorite. Yeah, I love that
Captain
one.
Obvious there.
Yeah.
Render praise before Caesar.
I like the one where they bring Max Shrek down into the zoo. Which, by the way, did Gotham just abandon the zoo? Is that the backstory here?
Yeah.
That they were just
I think that's the idea.
yeah, let's just not go to the zoo anymore. Let's just let the animals die off or go wild or whatever. But when they bring
I actually
Max
really
Shrek
like
down,
that. It's like in the first one where they're in a cathedral that clearly has not been used in decades.
Yeah.
It's like
Even though it's the tallest building in the city.
Yeah, parts of Gotham are just straight up in decay, even though tons of people still live there and it's huge. That's a cool part of Tim Burton's Gotham to me.
But I love the when Shrek goes down to the grotto for the first time, and he's like, I believe the word you're looking for is
I love.
Or you said it in the last episode where he's like, they were my number one, but they treated me like number
I
two.
was the number one son, but they treated me as... That's the funniest line in any Batman movie ever. I think that's just there's just no better line in any of these movies.
and so well delivered. I love. Oh my God! Does this mean we have to start fighting?
Yeah,
On the
Yeah,
dance
that's
floor.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're
right
overpaid.
in that same scene, he says something about this is really hard, and she grabs him and says semi-hard actually.
Okay,
It's
so
fuck.
penis touch count. There's at least, 3 grabs?
There's a
In
lot
the
of
film?
growth.
Well, that's one right there.
Yeah. There's one on the rooftop fight. It's like, oh, this isn't you going down the body armor.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
There's like a lot of like close-up shots in there where she could fully just be like, the fucking Cassius Clay on the speed bag down low.
Just the pussy I was looking for.
Muhammad Ali, not Cassius Clay, sorry.
Muhammad Shrek.
Muhammad
Let's
Shrek.
stay on theme.
Muhammad Strick.
Yeah. There's also
Any other lines?
Eat floor, high fiber.
Oh, I love that. High fiber. That's so good.
I think the best
Fiber.
Batman line isn't a line at all, but when he jerks back suddenly and as he's pulling the section of wall.
Oh,
Do you
yeah,
hear,
right.
Like,
Wait,
that
what?
you've missed. You ever pause that frame? It's fantastic.
Wait,
No, I
are you
gotta
talking
check that
about
out.
when he knocks out the taser guy?
Yeah.
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 And just the
Oh
look on
yeah,
his face.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
I love the Bruce Wayne line, I mistook me for someone else, when he thinks he's met Selina
Yeah,
Kyle
that's good.
before.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was good.
If you search Batman Returns weird screen cap, it's no. They're out there, baby.
Oh, another good Penguin line is, you said you're going to scare the Ice Princess. Well, she looked pretty scared to me.
Yeah, I would say from a story perspective, that's definitely where Catwoman starts to reconsider her choices. I like her
That should be
her
'cause
girl
Catwoman-
talk
yeah.
moment though.
Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman?
Can we talk about the Ice Princess's perfect arc? I have to push the button, and then she falls on the button.
That was a nice
Oh,
payoff.
yeah.
That's
I love
great.
that.
That was a nice payoff. Also,
The
but-
tree lights up, and then I push the button. No,
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, I like how she's written so that like you can be okay with her death because you know she was like hella dumb, even though like like loss of
Wow.
any human life is bad, but like she's you can see she's probably like not super smart. But I wish she lived through this one. I really do.
It's
But-
one of many brutal deaths in this movie. One of the few that aren't directly caused by Batman. He blows a man
TNT.
up with a bomb. He straight up killed some other dude too.
The flame
Oh
exhaust.
yeah,
of the
yeah.
car.
He burns a guy to death.
Oh, that guy didn't necessarily die. He just like he's never
looked-
gonna live the same.
Yeah, he's not gonna have any of his original skin, but
he just ain't never gonna live the
He
same.
killed the political career of the Penguin on with the scratching that CD.
yeah. Well, and
That's
also
what-
he takes pleasure in these killings too. Is like when he burns that guy with the exhaust, and especially when he shoves the bomb down the guy's shorts and kicks him into the hole, and it's clear that he's like got this little
Getting a
smirk on
kick
his
out of
face,
it.
like this doesn't count as killing, right? Like
honestly,
I got away with one. Ain't I
Well,
a stinker?
What was it in Batman Begins? Is like I don't have to kill you, but I could just jump off this train and forget. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't have to save you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have to save you.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
think
the bomb
that's
I just put in your shorts.
I think that's been missing from a Batman story for a long time. Is Batman not killing someone, but then a side character saying like, yeah, but he ain't never gonna live the same.
And Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman?
Yeah. I kind
He
of
also-
He is Batman, you idiot.
Only the dumb don't survive.
Yeah.
I thought the another scene I really liked was the one where Shrek and Selina Kyle are in the office building, and she's trying to like talk about why she's there and what she's doing, and he's intimidating her. Like that whole scene is like both actors are kind of nailing it, and Walken
Yeah.
especially when he's like when she's like, "What are you gonna do? Kill me?" And he gives her that look, and he's like, just kidding.
Yeah.
And then he immediately pushes her out the window. It's such a good like the way that whole thing unfolds, and then the payoff of him pushing her out the window at the end, anyways, is just delightful.
The way she slowly unfurls like his
Right.
plan and how it's totally evil.
Like talking it out loud, and she's like, "Oh, geez,"
Yeah.
but it's got so much momentum, she can't stop saying things. And
She's too
like
effective.
It's so stupid.
her relieved laugh when he acts like he isn't gonna kill her is so good. It's so good. She's like, "Oh, isn't that silly? Of course you're not gonna kill me." And then he pushes her out the window.
Do you think it's redundant to have so many clowns in this movie? I mean, we just kind of came
No.
off like
The Red Triangle Circus Gang is is one of the coolest ideas
Okay, great.
that
I'm
this
just-
movie had. It's fucking awesome. And we
glad we
talked
agree
about
on
it in our
something.
group chat. We're talking about an actual circus that was an actual circus, a whole circus of people that travel around
Entire
together
circus.
performing. At some point decided that they wanted to collectively go into being their own crime syndicate.
Child
as
kidnappers.
a whole, yeah, like as a unit.
Okay,
Like,
let's talk about the big players: the sword swallower, the fire breather. We
Fire
already talked
boy.
about the organ grinder. Woman
Motorcycle
with dog.
skull boys.
The dog.
Motorcycle skull boys.
woman
Those
is
skull
the-
helmets are dope. I love the googly eyes.
Oh,
in them.
so good.
Scary as hell, but she's the only person to defeat Batman canonically ever.
The
The
poodle
stilt
lady.
jugglers.
Poodle lady.
Yeah.
What exactly is her act? Like, going back to circus times, what did the poodle lady do? Just like, I have a trained poodle? That's
Yeah,
it?
and because of that trained guard poodle, she is unkillable.
Well, yes, of course.
Body
but-
armor, plot armor.
But
Yeah,
was she
exactly.
part of, like, an ensemble, or was she her own tent, is kind of my question.
I love the editing trick of like how the dog jumped high enough to catch the batarang,
Even though he doesn't get like
when clearly it
2
it
inches
jumped
off the
like
ground. Yeah.
Yeah, like this far, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're like legitimately creepy looking and scary. I'm a big fan of the Red Triangle Circus Gang, and in this case, we've had this question a lot in other podcasts where there's a criminal organization that has a real life function of do you get crooks and teach them how to do the real life job, or do you get people in the real life job and teach them how to be crooks? In this case, I think we have the answer. It's a circus that became
Yeah.
criminals rather than the other way around. But they've integrated fully, so they're good at both.
I don't want to backtrack too far, but the Penguin being a smarter character, because they're obviously devoted to him as a leader, would be more interesting, because they're interesting characters, and like, why are they following him? You know?
how did they meet? I'd like to see that story.
I feel
Yes.
like
Oh,
it,
yes.
it must be kind of like an homage to Phantom of the Opera. The idea that
Yes.
before moving into the opera, the Phantom was a circus freak as well. So it's just sort of like that period.
I want to see that.
And they're so
Prequel.
dedicated that they stick with him. But they actually do bail on him at the end, which made sense because he shot that fat clown who was like, I don't know,
Fat
Penguin
clown.
killing kids.
Even though we used to be kidnappers, this
I'm
seems
okay with
wrong to
kidnapping
me.
kids because it's right there in the name, but killing them.
But I draw the line at penguin fucking.
I mean, if we're gonna kidnap kids, can we at least have a goofy-looking train?
I let you shove that one penguin up my butt, but 2 penguins up my butt.
I got to draw the line somewhere, boss.
Well,
and
you
it's
know,
the line
killing
is on my
kids
butt.
And 2 penguins up the butt. That's the line.
I mean, to wrap it around, the whole thing was subliminally. It was biblical. The image of penguin is Moses in the basket. Now that, intentional or not, really informed the idea that the firstborn, like the 10 plagues, would be what his ultimate strike against Gotham. So there's a bit of a Jewishness to his plot.
I also think it would have been better if he wasn't in the pajamas so much. Like, put him in the tuxedo. Like,
Yeah.
they nailed it for the costume design of the tuxedo of this penguin. Like, he should probably keep wearing it, because
Yeah.
I mean, like the pajama thing is really gross and like unsettling, and it's like it sends a message, but also like
Once he gets
too
out of
much,
the sewer,
maybe.
dress
Yeah.
for the job you want, Penguin. Like
Yeah, no, it's definitely based on Tim's art. There's a poem, and I forget the title, but it's like the hideous penguin boy, and that's like right there. You see the drawing.
Yeah.
For me, I want to see like both the base level gross criminal and the aristocrat wrapped up together. I don't know.
like he gets the fancy clothes so he can make a good impression, but then for the rest of the movie, the fancy clothes just get shittier and shittier looking, and more worn out on him. I think we should, since we're talking about costumes a little bit, we should talk about the amount of ascot wearing in the Batman universe, both in this movie and the last one. I mean, Bruce Wayne's always either in a turtleneck or a button-down shirt with an ascot in it, and it's such a cartoony affectation of wealth that I've never actually seen one in real life, and yet in Batman, there are ascots all over the place in both.
That's
these
something
movies.
That's something I love and that I strongly support. I have no qualms with that whatsoever.
No notes on
no
the
criticism here. No notes on the ascot.
There's a
Beautiful work.
hilarious Disney cartoon, a recent one called Amphibia, in which there's a subplot in an episode about the Ascot stores going under, and one of the main characters is the only like person keeping it going.
Yeah,
He knows they're like having trouble, and he's like, but he just loves his Ascot so much.
They should get like an online retailer thing and sell to Gotham, because the rich people of Gotham love their ascots as well. They're all about ascots and they love them.
And really intricate headpieces for that that
Another thing I
ball.
thought when I was watching this was the modern Batman. Like, I was just thinking he's driving this car with this big whirring flame spitting turbine on the back of it, and I feel like a modern Batman would, as soon as possible, he would have been the first early innovator of the electric car, because it's like silent but deadly. It's like, this.
Well, that's another scene I'd like to see in this movie, is like Batman at the gas station.
Yeah. I'm under the impression that it has some kind of power cell and it does not take, unleaded gasoline.
You can't take it to any Joe Fix-It shop. I have a side note about Batmobiles. So one of the things about growing up in Hollywood and having a screenwriter for a dad is my parents did a pretty good job of hiding the fact that we were in Hollywood as best they could.
Well, like they made big like flats and put them outside your windows.
let's just say
there's just Duvetine like everywhere.
There's like there are like sometimes there are weird perks. For instance, so during the making the film, towards the end, a couple Teamsters showed up at the house one day, and they brought out a Batmobile that a child could drive in, and they were like, "This is a gift from Tim." He was actually re-gifting it. It had been given to Tim, and he thought, I'll give it to Wesley's kids. And we loved this little. It was like a really noisy fucking Batmobile that we just drove around in the backyard, and my parents hated it. It was so loud, and that winter was particularly rainy, and it was left outside, and it went to rust, and we were heartbroken. My parents were probably like, "Okay, let's chuck it." But if you look it up now, there were only 5 of those produced, and apparently it was like $100,000, if you had one. And they were like,
"Wow!"
But the noise.
Probably should have done that one. Yeah.
So like, but it wasn't like they convinced you. Like they weren't like, "No, Jacob, we live in Pleasantville, California. Los Angeles is far from here."
Just there's massive matte paintings.
Yeah. They didn't want
from
us,
this movie.
Look, there are Hollywood kids, and it's just like they're gonna go on the yacht or the private plane. We didn't have those things at all. But the one cool thing is, my dad did take me one time on set, and it was the Shrek's exterior of the department store. It was between shooting. They were setting up a shot, and I believe.
How old were you?
I was 6 or 5. I believe the reverse of the set was part of the park, as glimpsed at either the opening or the ending of the film. So they were doing double duty on this stage. But it was that was a pretty cool experience. I don't remember meeting Tim, but apparently I did. And you know what? He does have very curly hair.
Or did. Speaking of scenes that I'd like to see in this movie, in the cold open when we see the penguin, the baby carriage, float down the river, and then eventually it gets into the zoo and we see the penguins approach it. Mm-hmm. You can see that it's got a buckle on it, that it's like sealed shut.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the scene where the penguins get that thing open.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Penguins are pretty resourceful.
Yeah, like basically if you have 10 penguins, that's 10 beaks. 10 beaks equals like at least 10 fingers, right?
Exactly, yeah. So basically it takes 10 penguins to equal 1 human. And in Gotham, if they're stacked on top of each other and wearing a trench coat, They can actually get a license to drive an automobile. So, that's right. That's written right into their laws.
Did we talk recently about the Bud Ice penguin and how that's like one of my favorite advertising campaigns
I don't
that
recall.
ever happened?
I don't think so.
Oh, I talked about it with someone. Do you remember the Bud Ice penguin? Does anyone?
No. Was he on that Super
Okay,
Bowl
so, like,
commercial with all
my
the
memory.
Bud Light icons?
It's from back in these times, back in the 90s. It's
I remember the Coca-Cola polar bear. I remember the Bud Light
everyone knows
frogs.
the polar bear.
I remember
Everyone knows
the
polar
Fight Club
bear.
penguin.
The Fight Club.
Yeah, the one that goes slide. Watch it again.
Okay.
It's there
In Fight Club?
in Fight
Yeah.
Club.
Oh, I don't talk about Fight Club.
First two rules. Hey!
Yes. I'm sorry. All right. Anyways, so in the Bud Ice commercials, there's like a guy. He's like frantically driving a car at night, like scared as hell. Like, oh no, they're gonna get me. And he's got a 6-pack of Bud Ice, and he's just like terrified driving. And he's like, like he calls somebody or something. He's like, oh, thank God I got away. Like, he's after me. And then like all of a sudden he hears, doobie doobie doo, and he looks in the back seat, and there's a penguin back there, and he's like, ah! And that's
What
it.
is that
And
from?
then,
But the penguins humming
I do
Strangers in
remember
the Night
that.
was from something else, wasn't it?
no, it's the Bud Ice penguin. He comes after you if you have Bud Ice, and he takes your Bud Ice.
But
and,
why
like,
does he
can
hum
get to
Strangers in the
you
Night? I feel like
anywhere.
I feel like that was building on another gag where penguins
Because
hum
the
Strangers
penguin
in the Night.
is a stranger, and he's coming after you in the night.
It's quite literal.
Maybe I'm reading into it
Yeah.
too much.
The Bud Ice penguin was genius, though. I went back and I looked at all the YouTube videos of all, like, the whole character arc of the Bud Ice penguin, and yeah, it was cinematic how they built that commercial's narrative in like the 30 seconds or whatever they had.
You got major issues with Catwoman in this movie, and yet you think the Bud Ice penguin is. See, this is exactly why.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
I just saw a great Taco Bell ad that has Steve Harrington from Stranger Things, and it was directed by the guy who did Green Room. And it's a short horror film. I highly encourage you to check it. It's called The Craving. Matt, I think
yeah,
you'll
it's like-
appreciate
I've seen it a couple times.
good.
Yeah, it's
I
like
might
a trailer
check that
for a
out.
longer movie type of thing, which
Right,
the longer
exactly.
movie doesn't exist, but it's just kind of the yeah.
Personally, I think Taco Bell ads have gone downhill since the loss of the Chihuahua.
I might check out that new one, and then I'll let you know if yo quiero.
Geraldo, your Chihuahua.
Yeah, I love that.
And like we all know that Chihuahuas were forever ruined by George Lopez. No, George Lopez is fine. He's okay.
Well, Tim always features Chihuahuas. Like
There's one in Mars Attacks.
Attacks, very
that's right.
important in Mars
Yeah,
Attacks.
that's a critical component. This is a critical component of that plot and story is the Chihuahua.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's one in this movie.
Yeah,
It's
his,
just window dressing in this movie. He didn't
his
get to
then
integrate it
wife,
fully.
and then the wife after that. They all kept Chihuahuas. It was like kid. It's part of Tim's. It was in the contract when you marry him.
His whole thing.
There is one part of this movie that I love that we haven't talked about, and I didn't talk about it in the first episode because I wanted to save it for this, but I feel like that Danny Elfman's score in this movie is completely like elevated from the previous movie. It's now to a point of like operatic level, and I think his themes for both the Penguin and Catwoman are great.
They're great.
And like
I totally.
yeah, I love the music in this movie. I think it's Danny Elfman's best score ever.
It's the absolute best. And then I shared with you guys that the Super Nintendo version of the score from the video game, which is still awesome, even in like that 16-bit sound effects and stuff. This one has probably the best score of the 4 Batman movies we're doing, but not the best soundtrack. Probably the worst soundtrack. Best score, worst soundtrack. Because the fourth one has the Smashing Pumpkins song. The third one has Seal, and the first one has Prince.
And U2.
Yeah.
U2's all right.
Kiss from the Road.
That Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me.
Oh
Come
yeah,
on,
that's
a
good.
song.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean,
That's good.
but Seal is the real money maker there.
Elfman was scoring Nightmare Before Christmas, I think, almost simultaneously with Batman Returns. So he was just firing on all cylinders at that point.
Oh,
Well, it's kind of interesting because this one incorporates a lot of like the wintry, tinkly elements of like it actually reminds me a little of the Edward Scissorhands score, which is of course the movie that happened between Batman and this. So it's kind of like you can almost trace the evolution of his His soundtrack, like,
Totally.
I've said already that I'm very partial to the Beetlejuice score, and I think that one is incredible, and it'll be hard for that to ever be topped. But I agree, this is a sort of took the roots of the original great Batman score and enhanced them and added a lot to it.
There's also some musical motifs in this score that pop up later in Mars Attacks too. I noticed.
Wow. Huh.
But maybe if we ever cover that movie, we'll discuss that.
This one has the most confusing bat cave. Like, it's a series of platforms that may or may not be connected to each other. Like, do they jump across those little gaps, or like, do they have, what is it called when an elevator can do sideways also? It's like a turbo lift in Star Trek.
A Wonka-vator.
Yeah, Wonka-vator.
Wonka-vator.
Yeah, do they have like a lot of
trying to think
Wonka-vators
of
in the
what
bat
that-
cave?
My wife wanted to know how he collected the bats so he could release them and attack the penguin later in the film.
Alfred is just spending his time putting out little bat food, like gourmet meals, like just everywhere. He's got a whole Alfred on the side as a hobbyist picked up basically a PhD in like what is it,
Bat tending?
Bat husbandry.
bat science. I don't fucking
Bat
know. Come on,
husbandry.
yeah, bat husbandry. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's funny when Bruce Wayne like reaches into the fish tank and flips the switch and then walks in the Iron Maiden to go down to the Batcave, and Alfred's like, "I'll take the stairs." There's fucking stairs down there.
Yeah. We'd later see that Iron Maiden in Sleepy Hollow years later.
Yeah.
Oh, the same one?
Well, no, but there's something about the self-flagellation of the Tim Burton characters. You know,
I'm pretty sure that when you see Max Schreck's like burnt corpse at the end of this movie,
toasty.
that it's the same corpse that they used in the first Batman.
Yeah, except with eyeballs in this one.
Oh, right.
The one in the
Yeah,
first one didn't
yeah,
have
they
eyeballs.
put
And with
eyeballs
the
in-
Shrek
and the hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks
Shrek
exactly the
hair.
same. There's certain moments, especially with stuff like that, like the makeup on a corpse or something, that I'm like, that is such a Tim Burton moment in this otherwise, sort of pleasing the masses movie. He
Daddy
got
got
his looks
scared.
in.
Just a couple of little things I like when Batman scratches the CD like a DJ.
Oh yeah, so good. I love
love
the
it.
CDs in this movie. I like imagining they're like actually just CDs of contemporary music. I think I told you guys like, oh, I think he's popping in Pearl Jam.
Yeah, when he's trying to get the car back under his control.
he has a 6 CD changer for sure.
I had that
Probably
moment
a
where I was
tape
watching the
player.
movie and I forgot that he's recording the Penguin's performance, and I was like, wait, his car is being controlled by somebody else and is running over pedestrians, and he's like trying to put CDs into the CD player. Like, what the fuck is he doing? Also, that's not how CDs work. You really can't scratch them like records.
Yeah, you can't.
Our
That
younger
would
viewers
destroy it.
need to understand.
Yeah.
CD means
We should-
compact
Yeah,
disc.
we should explain what CDs are first.
They're not like records. Records are vinyl.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can get Batman Returns on vinyl. It's soundtrack. It's quite lovely.
Oh, I really want to get that.
Oh yeah.
I really want to get the movie on vinyl. When can we get record players that play movies?
They tried that once. They tried HD VHS. You can
I think they have them, but you can only get them if you're like super rich,
Yeah, you have to basically
or
be
like one of the
Waynes.
lizard men.
Yeah.
Well, you
Oh.
can get the Batman films on 4K now. If you haven't seen them in HDR, they really pop.
They really sing.
Yeah.
Woo! Ow! I also love that the Bat Boat. Well, first off, I love the Bat Boat in general.
Yes.
Which
Is it really a
awesome.
boat? It's kind of just a rocket.
Catamaran. Batamaran.
Yeah, it's like a catamaran. Exactly. Yeah, it's like
Catamaran's
it's
a
like meant
sails, though.
for.
It's some kind of. It's like a rocket boat. I like that it's the exact width of the sewer. So if the sewer ever gets any narrower, it's just fucked.
Like the alleyway that he drives through at one point. What were the city planners thinking, putting such a thin alley in?
Right. Yeah. I don't understand why we need a scene where the car turns into a big dick. I don't know why we need
A
that.
Bugatti.
I do like that Christopher Nolan ripped that scene off for his own Batman movies later, though.
It's not a car.
But anyway, speaking of the Bat Boat, I love that it makes penguin sounds. The radar.
I hate that. That is my
and
least
then-
favorite part
Something
of the
is
whole
approaching.
fucking movie. I
Big.
hate
What's
it
going on,
so
Colin?
much.
This is just the kind of shit you normally love.
It's dumb. Why would a radar
You
make
love
quacky
dumb
noises?
But don't worry,
know.
Colin.
You
It
spend
shows a picture of a duck when it senses the duckmobile on the radar
That's the
too.
entire James Bond podcast having the exact opposite argument where you thought the dumb things were cool and I thought the dumb things were dumb. And now we're gonna have this in this movie where are you gonna suddenly start thinking dumb things are dumb now? It's gonna be it's like a real heel turn for you.
It's true. This is really off-brand. This is really brand X of you, Colin.
I think you have to understand the context of the early '90s irony. Like you had to not like things, so dumb things were dumb for a while.
Colin's getting into
you weren't there.
Period.
You don't know.
If you weren't there, younger listeners.
Yeah.
Put down the TikToks.
I mean, I was gonna say that I also dislike that particular and the CD scratching and a lot of those other things for being too
CD
cheesy
scratching's
and dumb.
good.
But since Colin's on board with this being dumb, then I just can't. I'm gonna have to say that they're okay.
I'd like to offer my low-key appreciation of the Penguins' pro-environmental stance. Like, there's a lot of save the planet woven into "I'm threatening your life" moments.
Well, the toxic waste is part of his blackmail tools.
And at the end, he's gonna dip Shrek into the waste. And I miss when toxic waste was bright green in films. Like you want like RoboCop, and it's just like, let's go back to that. Let's put toxic waste in films again.
A simpler time.
Yeah, and it both had the properties of acid and like some kind of radioactivity as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's science.
We talk about this a lot, that movies are missing. Like, this movie also has, like, huge abandoned locations.
Yes.
Great. Like a factory or, for instance, a zoo. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Toxic
I
waste is
I
always a
like how
classic.
asymmetrical Catwoman's costume is, like how her eye holes are a different size, and it kind of like that costume. Actually, I just want to say everything about Catwoman is awesome. The whip, the flipping, the dialogue, the costume when the bird flies out of her mouth. Everything about it is awesome. The scene where she trashes the department store, and like there's some really good. I don't know if it's how much of it was Michelle Pfeiffer, or how much of it was a stunt double, because she's actually in a lot of the scenes where she's doing the whip work.
She does
and
the whip.
The whip
She
work.
was good.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Like it's some impressive whipping, and I think it's
what
awesome.
kind of training did she have? Was she listening to Devo or
A dominatrix school, actually.
Oh,
I love her
and the
trashing
costume
her.
is the best Catwoman costume
Her
ever.
apartment,
They'll never top it.
The building, the costume, and the score that goes over that scene is just like, that's what you call pure cinema. You lean forward.
I actually kind of don't like how the costume is by the end of the movie torn up. You know, like
I love that. It's like it's her like breaking free from that.
But the costume is so
persona.
good that you almost don't want to see it get destroyed.
Don't worry, they made a
I get
separate
that.
costume. They kept the original one. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with the sentiment of the costume looks so good you don't want to see it ripped
Right.
up. But for the character, it makes sense.
When was patent leather like? How did they? Patent leather is a great choice, but like, how did it get on the radar? You know, like patent leather is.
Wizard did it.
Well, when it showed up on the radar, it was in the shape of a Catwoman.
Meow 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 meow.
Batman taking off his cowl at the end. I always get so nervous that it's gonna like rip unevenly.
I'm just amazed that his cowl was made out of black licorice. Like that, who would have thought that?
Yeah, I don't like that he can rip it off because I was under the impression that it's made of the kind of rubber that like bullets will bounce off of or
It's
whatever.
like Mjolnir.
Yeah, no
Only
kidding.
he can rip it off. No one else could do it.
You have to know where the seam is.
I get that. I wish there was I wish it wasn't a ripping thing. I wish it was like he just took it off.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't really
it's
make any
cool.
sense, and it really does look like black licorice.
Yeah.
Let's quickly talk about the ending. What do we all think of the final sequence, the Penguin's death and Shrek's death and all that stuff?
The whole the army of penguins thing and his whole little performance in front of them and the woman doing like the countdown from the little igloo.
I love.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's
Why do you hate ridiculous things all of a sudden? What is going on? What's wrong with you?
We've already gone over this.
that'll
We have entered the alternate universe.
Is it
Dark
opposite
Colin.
day? What is happening?
I
It's
don't get
opposite
that
day.
I don't get that the Penguins have to go to the town square to launch their rockets, all facing each other, and in an area where there's no people.
None of it
I don't
makes
get
sense.
that.
The penguins have reached.
Also, I don't get how when Bruce Wayne gets control of the Penguins and counteracts them, he sends them back and has them shoot rockets at where he and Penguin are standing. Like, is that what?
And I also don't get that when the Penguin gets the upper hand and gets the button in his hand, that he thinks it's going to be any different if he pushes the button,
Right.
Or if,
None of it.
or if Michael Keaton pushes it.
Every part of the Penguin ending of this movie makes very little sense. And the only redeeming quality, the way it totally saves itself. I'm not a big fan of the ending of this movie, but the penguin part is completely ridiculous. I like the poodle lady reading the countdown because it's so fucking weird. And I like how she just disappears when it's like clear they're all fucked, and she just vanishes, and all the rest.
Yeah,
of
it's
the
like
circus,
she's on a dolly. She's not walking. She's like on a dolly
shadows.
getting.
It's amazing.
That's how
I love that,
go.
and I love that the rest of them like do cartwheels to like slowly get out of there.
Yeah.
Inconspicuous, like nervous cartwheels.
And of
like,
course, the biggest redemption of the entire thing is the penguin pulling out the umbrella to kill Batman with it, and he's like, I got a cute one. And then the penguins, when he dies, the other penguins ushering him off for like the Viking funeral into the water. That's great. That's perfect.
The music is great for that whole thing.
The
it's
shot
like
of the
really
penguins through
tragic.
the murky water looking down.
I love
it's
that
wonderful.
shot.
It's perfect.
I'm gonna say something out loud that's kind of been underlying what I've been saying. Is this might be a better Tim Burton movie than it is a Batman movie?
Don't disagree.
In my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense because I like Tim Burton way more than I like Batman, so that makes sense for me.
Well, you shouldn't, Batman. His parents died for you. No, sorry.
Wait, they died? They didn't say that in the film. They died?
His parents? I didn't even know he had. I thought Alfred was his parents.
Yeah.
I need to see that in at least 4 movies to understand what you're saying.
They should
need
do
to
it
see
each act.
An
It should be first act,
pearls.
second act, third act, every time.
I feel like in the Val Kilmer when they do like have like flashbacks in every act of like pearls falling and stuff.
You know what we haven't seen yet is Batman with amnesia, or like some kind of 50 First Dates meets Batman. So like every scene, Alfred is like, he's like, why am I dressed as a bat and fighting crime again, Alfred? And Alfred's like, oh, well, your parents were killed, and he starts crying again or whatever.
It's every day is just him trying to talk Bruce Wayne down. It's like,
Every
no,
day,
sir,
yeah.
you have to get out and fight crime again tonight for your parents. And he's like, oh, I'm still in grief. I can't believe they're dead. I can't believe I'm not 8 years old.
I do hope when you get to
Yeah.
Batman Forever, please,
Yeah.
if you haven't looked
50
it up,
First Dates.
the
Oh, sorry.
deleted giant bat scene in Batman Forever.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the
Please
giant
make sure
bats
to touch on that.
are amazing.
We've
And
got
also-
a really good guest for
also-
that one,
excellent.
and we're gonna get deep into the alternate cut of Batman Forever
Ooh.
that has yet to
Can't
be
wait to hear
released.
it.
Also,
Can't wait to hear you
Batman
record it.
Forever is a great name for a movie where Batman wakes up with amnesia every morning.
Yeah, I'm thinking Batman meets 50 First Dates meets Big with Tom Hanks, where like you said, he's a little bit confused that he's not 8 years old.
Yep.
Several times, and like Alfred just keeps having to retell the story over and over again,
And then train him in
where
karate,
Alfred-
and then send him
Yeah.
out into dark alleys.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I think it's time to play top 4. Do we have any last thoughts before we jump into this?
The Catwoman part of the ending is better. Although I still don't understand why she has the taser and the big electrical cable, and she puts her face on both of them while she's electrocuting.
Okay,
Shrek.
so
Like,
this is simple electrical engineering, but to complete the circuit, you have to make out with Max Shrek.
Sexy.
Also, speaking of Catwoman and ending, this will be my last thing. Did you know that last shot of her is a puppet? A Mike Fink effect?
Yes,
had
I
heard
know
that 'cause
about
they couldn't
this.
get her back for the.
Yeah.
The very last thing,
that
like
very
her
last
with the
shot.
signal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when they
okay.
do
Yeah.
that big boom up.
It was a last-minute decision to put that in, right?
And it works.
And it's also the most expensive shot in the whole movie.
What do you know?
Because the puppet's made of gold.
No, the puppet is actually Mike Fink.
I love gold.
He had to put on the Catwoman outfit himself. He was like, it got to the end, and his puppet wasn't working, and he was like, "Oh no, they have to shoot this tomorrow, and I've got I don't have a puppet." And he just showed up, and he presented himself as the puppet. He drew little
Mike, can you?
He drew
can you
little
fit in the
hinges
suit?
on his jaw and on his elbows, and he's like, "I'm a Catwoman puppet."
Yes, of course. And I just heard Jacob reference Austin Powers. So when Dr. Evil says sharks with laser beams attached to their heads, that's like ridiculous and laughable. Yet here we see penguins with rockets attached to their backs.
Totally different.
Okay. All right.
Apples and oranges, Colin. Jesus. I can't believe I have to
My bad.
explain this to you.
More like a
My
penguin.
bad.
More like a penguin, actually.
Good callback, Jacob.
All right, guys, I'm going to give you a choice this time. So for top 4, Jacob, we have a new segment. I don't believe we played this the last time you were on.
Hit me.
Where basically we're going to play a bit of a trivia game where you guys will take turns. Even though I said I wanted to play last time. I fucked up again, Harris. So basically, I'm going to give you an actor from this movie, and one at a time, you're going to guess their top 4 films that they are most well known for, according to IMDb.
All right.
So not actually their best movies, not the ones that they're actually in real life most known for. The ones that stupid IMDb thinks they're most known for.
Yes, we don't understand its thought process, but it clearly has some.
All right.
kind
I'm
of
no
influence.
algorithm, but
For
I'll
instance,
do my best.
The giant thug that Batman blows up with the dynamite would definitely be most known as the main bad guy from Over the Top, although we don't know his name.
Is that the trucker arm wrestling
The
movie?
trucker arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Got it.
So the choice I'm giving you guys is: do you want to do Michelle Pfeiffer, Christopher Walken, or Michael Keaton?
Oh, those are all so good.
I excluded Danny DeVito's because his is way too hard.
Walken. I want to do Walken.
Yeah, I think we should
even
do
though that's
Walken.
way too hard. Also,
It is going
I'm
to
not going to get any of them.
All right.
Well, let's do it, though.
Walken?
Yeah.
Walken
Yeah.
it is. We're walking down to Walken Street.
Dad,
Okay.
save yourself.
Dad, run.
A mild
Save yourself.
swelling.
Jacob, since you are our guest, you can go first.
All right. I'm going to go with, to start, Annie Hall.
You lousy minx!
Sorry, that is incorrect. Harris, you're up.
I'm going to go with Catch Me If You Can.
Naked, sexual charisma.
That is correct.
I know
Oh,
IMDb
nice.
so well by now. It's so stupid.
That's nice.
It's like I understand the algorithm, I think.
Well, if you come back to me, I have a completely wackadoo guess. So.
What's that
We'll
one
come back,
called?
we'll come
The
back.
like King of New York or whatever?
You great white dope!
That is what it's called, and that is wrong.
Oh,
that was a good guess, though.
fudgicles.
Are you ready for this? The Rundown.
You great white dope!
That is
that with-
from left field. And
that with
that
Dwayne?
is
Dwayne
a foul
Dwayne
ball.
Johnson, but not The Rock.
But it's
I
like
got
more
that.
current. That is, that's what
Interesting.
you're looking for.
Doesn't that also have the Stifler guy in it with Sean William Scott or whatever?
Yes,
Yep.
it does.
Okay.
I'm going to go
That's
with,
wrong, sorry.
I think this is probably wrong, but I'm going to go with it anyways and say The Deer Hunter, for which he won an Academy Award, or was nominated at least.
That's smart.
He
Smart
won,
pick.
and you just won because that is correct.
Naked, sexual charisma.
Smart pick. Batman Forever.
You mean this movie?
Yes.
Returns?
I mean Returns.
This one is called Batman Returns.
Whatever. Fuck. They all should be called Batman Forever because
Forever
Batman is
too.
forever.
They all should be called Batman Returns because he's always returning.
But was he?
But,
is it
um,
listed?
It is no, that is incorrect.
You great white dope!
Oh, okay. What about Pulp Fiction?
Good one.
That would have been a great one, but no.
I believe the word you're looking for is...
All right, now it's time for hints. I'll give you guys a
Yeah, I
hint.
need him.
One of them is incredibly hard. I don't know if you guys will get it. We'll probably end the game before that. The other one, the hint I will give you is that it is...
Give us a genre.
Here's a good hint. Michelle Pfeiffer is also in it, and it is also a part of her top 4.
I don't like surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Harris's turn.
Fuck. I don't like that clue because it's just throwing me off. So I'm going to guess I
can give you one more hint if you want.
sure.
It's a musical.
Oh, wait. Hairspray? No. That was.
I believe Walken started in musicals. Like that's his.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
his
Pennies from
training.
Heaven.
Yeah, I was going to say Pennies from
The
Heaven.
Dead
is the only one I
Zone,
could think
also a
of.
great musical.
Can we write The Dead Zone the musical? All right.
I actually love
I'm
the
gonna
score
guess-
from that movie, okay?
I'm going
Yeah,
to guess Gates
that's a
of
Howard
Heaven.
Shore, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
no,
who does it.
You're
I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
I'm going to guess Heaven's Gate.
Yes.
You lousy minx!
No, that's not a musical. But
I know, I'm not guessing the musical one. I can't think of it.
well, Jacob already said it.
What was it?
Hairspray.
Oh,
Hairspray.
I never would
Yeah.
have gotten that.
Although he gets a
Well,
really
you're never gonna get this other one.
delightful
How am I
performance
never
in
going to
that
get this other one? I know all the other ones. I know Christopher Walken movies.
the King of Marvin Gardens. I
It's
don't
my
even know if
turn.
it's in it. I just wanted to
It's
say that.
my turn.
Sorry.
my
Go
turn.
ahead, Colin.
I
Go
saw
ahead.
him in a Peter Pan with the girl who plays Marnie from Girls back in 2015, and I'm gonna guess Peter Pan.
You great white dope!
No. All right,
Jacob.
This is
Decade.
according to
What
IMDb.
decade?
This is a a movie from 1995. It is an action crime drama.
10 Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead.
You great white dope.
Ooh, good guess.
Nope.
But it's a great film.
Action crime drama from 1995.
I can only think of 4 things to do, but continue.
Shit, that eliminates all my good guesses that I had.
And it's not The Prophecy.
Was he in? Yeah, that was a good one.
Naked, sexual charisma.
That's it.
Oh, really?
It's a
Oh
prophecy.
my god, I wouldn't have described it as an action.
Now
crime
that
drama.
is a trilogy, and I guess there are more now, but that we could get into. at
That's a
some point.
supernatural crime. Supernatural. That's definitely not
According,
whatever.
according to IMDb, it's an action crime drama.
It's a
A-
crime
IMDb's
that more
dumb
people don't know about
again.
it.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
It's
It's
pretty
got
out
Eric
there.
Stoltz and Christopher Walken as the main characters as fallen angels come to Earth to wreak havoc.
And doesn't
Oh, like
Vigo
Dogma.
show up at some point?
Yeah, Viggo Mortensen's in there too,
Just like Dogma.
just like Dogma.
Sounds like Dogma to me.
It's exactly like Dogma except serious.
Oh.
And what's the hockey player's name from Ninja Turtles?
Casey
Jones.
Jones.
Casey Jones?
Casey Jones is in the prophecy too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well,
Cool. All right. I think we should start. We should start giving our rankings of this movie.
There's still dolphins, though, right?
Yes, they're in Dolphins.
Okay, I just don't want to stray too far from the the thing that brought me here in the first place.
Yeah, we should bring up that this is your 3rd time being a guest with us. You're the most. You're in the 3-timers
The
club.
3 most controversial sequels ever reviewed on this podcast.
Wait, what was your other one? Exorcist 3? Or
Well, yeah, Exorcist 3, MI2. By the way, I went
Yeah.
back and watched Exorcist 2, and I had a really fun time with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like our favorite one.
Yeah.
fun
I
one.
mean,
it's
just
just definitely.
Now,
the
bring
best.
me down to your level.
Yeah, bring your level down to my level.
I think my absolute favorite part is right after the hallucination where he steps on the spikes. He wakes up on the floor of this like science laboratory place, and Kakumo, who was always doing science and is a doctor, just knows he's supposed to be there when he was passed out on the floor for no
I
reason.
love that this will
like-
always be fresh in our minds.
He's faced out of the
It'll
floor.
always be brought
and
up.
Kakumo's like, "Oh, sorry.
Oh,
to keep
hey,
you
I'm
waiting.
Kakumo.
Right this way."
Yeah, right.
High
this
in
way.
fiber.
Oh my good lord! All right, who wants to rate this
Well,
thing?
Colin's been rating it all episode, so he might as well start us off.
All right, I'll go first.
Our fans are the colonizers are gonna love this episode. This is a heavy Colin episode.
Yeah, he wouldn't shut
well,
up. Go ahead.
I just trying to like I felt I was being succinct, and then you kept like challenging me on it, and I'm like, but you acted like I was like really shitting on the movie, and I was just like giving a little bit of criticism. Anyways, so my favorite and I think the best Tim Burton film is Big Fish. The reason for that is that I think Tim Burton is a really interesting storyteller, and Big Fish is about the storyteller and the story and the differences and reconciling them, etc. I think it's really interesting topic for him particularly because I look at movies like this where what I said earlier I think really applies. This is a really cool Tim Burton movie, but it's to me not the best Batman movie, not at all. And there's a difference there. And here I feel like the Tim Burton movies that are successful sometimes are the ones where he's the storyteller and that's the most important part, and other times it's where the story underneath that is important and he's told it well. And sometimes those two things aren't perfectly gelling. I think here they were, but to me it was better the first time. And I love Tim Burton, I do, but I also love Batman, and I like Batman 1 better. And I feel like this wasn't as good of a Batman movie as 1989 Batman, even if it was a better Tim Burton movie. And I am going to give it 7 Timothy Dolphins.
I knew he was going to give it 7 too, which is like a really good score for me.
Yeah, you mentioned Big Fish. Did you ever hear the joke about like Tim Burton calls Danny DeVito? It's like, hey, I want you to be in my next film, and he grabs a giant hat and he's like, say no more.
Yeah. No, but to me that movie says a lot about Tim Burton, because like the whole thing is that the father in it was a storyteller, and he told these really big exaggerated stories where things weren't real. And then the guy finds out that the real story has value to him also. And that's like the whole conflict is like, where was the honesty or whatever? But like what he learns is that like, you know, his father tried, and like they are a real family and all this other stuff. And it's really interesting that he would do that, because I see movies like this where, yeah, like this is a fucking, like only Tim Burton can make this fucking movie. And there's parts of it that like are extremely interesting because he's the one who did it. But it's also like not as Batman as some of the other Batman things I've seen in my life. And maybe that's just because I'm too like invested in that IP or whatever. But I don't know, like,
well,
we
we're not
have to
allowed
talk
to
about
challenge your
something.
Timothy Dolphin score, so I guess it's going to have to stand. I would be hard pressed to pick a favorite Tim Burton movie from, especially the first half of his career. I think they're all great, but Big Fish is a probably the high point of what he did. I'm not going to rate this movie compared to something outside of what this movie was and what it was trying to do. And I do think it's flawed. It absolutely is flawed. I think it's got some falls short in some ways, mostly with as we said, the Penguin storyline, and Danny DeVito's kind of plot. I think his performance is remarkable and excellent and spot on, but the story and how it concludes leaves a little something to be desired. The character could have been more powerful, more invested, more motivated. But I think the Catwoman storyline is perfect. And I think those performances as those characters are great. And I mean, that face lick became iconic. So much of everything in this movie became sort of iconic in its own way. And I just feel like this was such a great sequel to a movie that's the first movie set the bar so high. And this was, you know, for me, very fun and very satisfying, and did everything the first movie did well and did some of it better. So I'm willing to forgive it basically what is kind of a major failing of having the main antagonist kind of have a wonky plot that doesn't quite pay off in a satisfying way. But I think all the other big parts of this movie were great, and aesthetically it's delightful. And there's just so many scenes in this where I was just enjoying watching the characters and the actors play these characters on these sets and deliver these lines. It was well written. It was funny. It had great action. Batman was moving a little better, even though he still can't turn his head. He was a little more dynamic. So it's not as good as the first Batman. It isn't. I can't say that it is. But
we didn't talk about the abs on the suit. This might be the best abs on the suit. They're very robotic, but it's got a nice sleek look.
Yeah, right. I think, it's there's some.
I think the suit looks really good in this
high
movie.
caliber futuristic cum gutters there.
Brutalist,
Grody.
Look at this guy. He's all cum gutters.
Anyways,
CG.
So despite the fact that it's not as good as the first Batman, I also give it 9 Timothy Dolphins as I gave the first one. Slightly lesser 9 Timothy Dolphins, like 9 slightly smaller dolphins.
Almost like penguins, if you will.
Yeah, 9 Timothy penguins.
Aww.
The dolphins, almost his good cousin.
Well, you can't tell the difference on radar because the squawking is so similar.
Yeah.
Jacob, before you rate this thing, I have to acknowledge that something we totally forgot to mention about this movie, but there is, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there's a news reporter character that sounds exactly like Robert Wuhl from the first movie, but it is clearly not him.
Oh, yeah.
And this was like a big thing. Like, I think Tim Burton didn't want the character of Knox in the first movie, and so he had him removed from this, but then they had to have like a news reporter character, so they felt the need to like, Yeah, they felt the need to remind the audience like of Knox from the first movie, even though it's a different guy and it's clearly supposed to be a different guy. I don't know. Did you guys notice any of that?
Honestly,
or?
I've never put that one together. That's an
I
interesting
mean,
catch.
watch it again. His voice sounds exactly like Robert Wall.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that. I just thought it was like he demanded more money and they were like no or something, but I don't know.
I had heard that like what's the guy's name? John Peters. He butted heads with Tim Burton a lot on the first movie, and one of the things that Tim Burton didn't want was this like news reporter character. And
well, he was supposed to in the original script he was a bad guy, or kind of had a heel turn at the end, and
something like that. Yeah, and he was supposed to die.
Peters wanted him to be heroic.
Yeah, and so that was like when they said this can be a Tim Burton movie. That was like one of the first changes that he made was to like just get rid of and Vicky Vale too, I guess, to get rid of her
and the big mechanical spider.
Yeah. But okay, so Jacob, your rating?
Excellent sequel to Dark Man. I give it 8 penguins.
That's your whole thing?
Look, I don't have time to give my entire life story, but it's a very amusing film. It kind of rides on the seat of its pants. Sometimes I lose focus, but you know what? You can watch it every Christmas.
It is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
Alfred's been looking at that tree for a long time.
Master Bruce, would you help me? Please, I'm
Master
so
Bruce,
cold.
will you help me with this ornament? Your parents really love this one. I'm busy, Alfred.
Master Bruce, I've fallen off the ladder and broken my hip. Would you help me to my feet? Damn it, Alfred. You're distracting me from potential bat signaling.
Dad, if you're listening, I love you. I love you, fuck.
Do you think your dad will listen to this?
Absolutely not. No. Just kidding. I have no idea.
But can you just repeat your final score one last time?
I'm going to give that 8 out of 10 to Timothy Penguins.
Timothy Penguins.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll be quick. This is our longest show probably ever.
You can cut out probably about 30 minutes of me and Colin arguing over stupid shit.
or speed it up. Don't cut it out.
Make us talk really fast.
It's just like Micro Machines guys fighting.
Just anytime one of us repeats a point that we've already made, just cut it out.
Take a shot.
Before watching this movie last night, in my head, even at our last show, I thought to myself, I'm giving Batman the first one a 9 because I'm probably going to give Batman Returns a 10 because in my mind that is the best one, and I love that movie. I grew up with it, and I love everything about it. Watching it last night was maybe the first time watching it. I mean, it was definitely the first time watching it as a father, and it's the first time revisiting it in a very long time. I can't even remember the last time I watched it, but it made me look at it in different ways, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but like I definitely realized and we watched a couple of behind the scenes videos we were passing around in our text message today of like, I don't know what talk show that was, but it was like a bunch of kids and their parents discussing like how disappointed they were with this movie and how violent and dark it was for kids and how mismarketed it was. I'm definitely not one of those parents. I do still appreciate the darkness of this movie, but I do watch it with a different point of view suddenly, and yeah, I don't know. I agree with a lot of what you guys said that this is definitely more of a Tim Burton movie and less of a Batman movie in hindsight, but I do, like I said earlier, appreciate the point of view that Tim Burton took in dealing with these characters and like coming up with new backstories for them and just making an all-around weird movie that's like scored beautifully and looks beautiful and like I don't know, it's a good movie, but it's flawed, and I don't know if I consider this my favorite Batman movie anymore, but I still love a lot about it, and I don't know. I go back and forth, but I think I kind of land on where Harris landed, that like I'm not going to give this a 10 because it's not perfect, but I can't give it less of a score than the first Batman because I think I still like this movie more than the first one, even though I really like the first one too. So I think they're neck and neck, man. I think I have to give this 9 Timothy Dolphins also.
I actually after you sent that video, I talked to my mom a little bit about that video, which was interesting. But she didn't offer like too much perspective on when I was that age. She was just like, I don't really remember, like when you saw it, or if I like let you or didn't let you see it. But yeah, I was telling her, like, I do know that, you know, from before I could remember, probably when I was like 2 years old, I was already watching like Batman content, like Adam West, probably, and it is a dark story at its core because yeah, it's about, you know, someone who like witnessed their family getting murdered right in front of them. But you know how you handle that is it's just something you have to deal with. But like good stories that work with like all ages, like they can be dark. Like Bambi's fucking mom gets killed. Like
What?
all the yeah.
Spoiler alert, Jesus.
Yeah, like, you know, like all the stories that like you have to find this balance between like reaching kids on a level of reality where that they can take it in and like process it as something that's real, but also reaching them in fantasy where it's what they want and about what their hopes and dreams are and stuff like that.
Yeah, but Bambi 2 is actually way better than the first one. I'll go to Matt any day. Hey, Matt.
As someone who was 14 years old when this movie came out, I think it was pitch perfect and made sense and was great for kids of all ages. And I think Danny Slasky, the kid critic on that clip on that YouTube clip that we saw,
You gotta just send me this clip.
Name dropping.
has his head up his ass, and I would like to meet him today and talk to him about it. Because also, did you hear the shit that he said on that? He was like, "This is really bad for kids. It could really scare them because you know there's a lot of violence and whatever." But then he
watched it a second time.
in the same breath,
Yeah,
in the
I
same
love that.
breath, Danny Slasky admits that it didn't scare him. He's just concerned about kids, and Danny Slasky was himself a child. So I think that his
10
entire
years old.
argument should be thrown out.
Also, like, this movie was given a rating, and that rating was PG-13,
PG-13,
which
yeah.
clearly dictates that kids under 13 should not see this movie unless supervised by a parent. So, like, all these kids, you know, worrying about the younger kids.
Yeah. It's not
Need
like
not.
legally they could go see it if they wanted to. Like they had to
Right.
have a parent.
Well, all
I
of
saw
you
this
out
movie in the
there
theater.
in podcast land, if you're 13 or older, we encourage you to watch Batman Returns and make up your own mind.
Yeah, and if your
Yeah.
kid critic Danny Slasky, you know, hit us up,
Eat a
send us
dick.
out an email, and tell us what you've been up to. Probably failing at everything else, like you failed at reviewing this movie.
Wow. So, Danny Slasky, you need to join our Patreon for $1 a month. And then this way you can send us messages which we will respond to.
And we
I'm
can
a
find out
member.
when and where we're going to have our fight. I assume that we're pretty similar in age, so you know I think that would be fair.
Honestly, though, I got the impression that Danny Slasky was coached to say what he said by his mom. I don't know if
Totally.
you guys were with that or what, but like his mom clearly.
All those kids in that video
Yeah.
were coached.
That's possible, and Danny Slasky can yell that at my fists while they're pummeling him for his aggression about this great movie.
Harris is on fire in this
Oh my
episode.
God, so violent.
He's trying to fight Colin, trying to fight Danny Slasky.
Got the Shrek
He doesn't
hair.
even know Danny Slasky.
We didn't really talk about like when we first saw this movie. I was 8 years old when this came out, and I saw it in the theater. It was like a Saturday matinee show, I remember. And yeah, I mean, that was my experience. I loved it. I loved everything about it.
I think either my grandparents went to see it and walked out, and then I later saw it, or they took me to see it and they walked out, and so I didn't get to see like the entire. But they wouldn't have walked out until after like the army of penguins, so there was only like a minute left in the movie, anyways.
And I watched it at home because I was a sensitive kid and they knew I wouldn't like it. Danny, if you're out there, thank you for thinking of kids like me.
Danny Slasky.
Danny,
We're all
there,
we're all
fight me.
talking trash at Danny Slasky, and Jacob's sitting here agreeing with that.
Jacob's
actually
like Danny
curious.
Slasky.
I'm sure I saw this with my brother Johnny. I think we saw this in the theater, and I'm sure I saw it with him. And I'd be curious, he's a couple years younger, if he was horrified by it as Danny Slasky was. So horrified he watched it twice. That son of a bitch. They got to you, didn't they, Danny? How much did they pay you? How much was your integrity worth?
It's probably nothing. His mom's just like, if you want to eat dinner at the house tonight, you're gonna say this on TV.
Yeah.
All right, I think to take us out. Well, first off, Jacob, thank you for being our guest.
of course.
And yeah, you've become the staple. You've become our go-to.
Okay,
Like-
but don't just bring me on for my brilliant insights, but my hair.
I do love the West stories.
Well, we could go over the whole West over if you're
The West
game,
Files. Can we call them the West
movies
Files?
like Wolf, Arachnophobia, Return to Paradise.
Yeah, we should do. I when you said Cape Fear before, I was like, oh, that's a sequel, but then I was like, no, that's a remake. But we should just do both Cape Fears.
It's a requel.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about doing The Saint. Did he write that
He
one?
wrote The Saint.
There you
Hey,
go.
hey.
Is he
What about-
credited
Oh
on
yeah.
that one?
Oh yeah.
Good.
He's got Val Kilmer stories.
I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of Val Kilmer stories out there in the world.
Val is
Yeah.
he's special.
He's colorful.
Special one.
What about the sequel to Cape Fear, Jacket Fear? You get it because like a fear
Ascot
of the
Fear.
garment, and then Ascot Fear. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it,
actually-
Colin. It was right there. It was teed up
Tim,
for you, and you picked the wrong garment.
I just thought jackets were closest to what a cape is. I don't know. It's stupid.
All right, guys. I think we got to wrap it up. I think we should all in unison scream, "Burn, baby, burn." What do you think?
Burn, baby, burn.